Welcome to Biggest Geekus. We're your hosts. I'm Randy.
And I'm Joe.
This is episode 50 of our podcast, and the date is Wednesday, August 25th, 2021. Got our special guest, our homeboy Patrick from Pointy Hat Games. And we will have another. We may have another guest later. Let's not mention his name till he shows up, because then we'll give him some crap if he doesn't.
You don't want people to have, it's not like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
What's that?
No, I just said he who shall not be named.
He who shall not be named.
Right.
Yes. A fellow anchorite, actually.
We don't want to give anybody dramatic tension. It's kind of hard to because we're recording, we're not live.
Right. It won't matter, but it sounds good on paper.
By the time, do we want to even put it in the title afterwards?
Ooh, that would be.
Should we just say mystery guest?
Mystery guest. That sounds good. Let's call it the mystery guest. Sounds good. It really builds up. That really builds it up.
Yeah.
So what's up, Daddy-O?
Not much. I haven't been playing nothing.
Guess what Patrick and I have done?
Is this something you want to say out loud on the internet?
Yeah. We played D&D on Saturday.
Oh, cool.
5E.
Was that a one shot?
Yeah, it was a one shot. Philip ran it, and dude, Patrick.
One shot that almost got us one shot.
Oh, it was totally ridiculously tough. Yeah, this is kind of my we must just call it the positive material play and do it out of order, because, dude, it was deadly. Philip took away short rest, didn't get him. And all we had to do, and so it was tough. And we fought these undead that were draining your hit points, so you take damage, and they would drop your maximum hit point total. At one point, what were you, Patrick? Your wizard?
7 hit points
for your maximum.
For a 5th level wizard. It was awesome. And dude, I was like, for most of the time I wasn't hurting anything. I had my sword got destroyed and some it was really cool. The webbing that rusted your items. It was webbing in a room. But then I got a +2 mace, and Patrick cast haste on me in this fight. Dude, I was rolling handful. I action surged.
Oh boy.
Ooh, it was awesome. So good.
Randy, the amazing Turbo Ginsu.
Yeah, he did it to me twice. It was pretty sweet. I mostly just slaughtered everything when I got that rolling on me. So
how long was your session?
How long did we play? We started pretty close, about 6:37, I think, and played till when? 10:30, 11?
Sounds right.
Yeah, we ended up having 6 players, so that made it for a little bit. I think with 6 players is tougher to RP.
Phil was actually pulling punches with that particular scenario too.
Yeah, he pulled a lot of punches.
Like the undead bad guy, he's immune to like everything but 2 things.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't know. It's like you don't get short rests. You have things that lower your maximum hit points, and you have something that's immune to everything but 2 things. Then this was written by DM Dave.
Yeah.
I love you, brother, but DM Dave, you're a DM dick.
I don't want to give too much about Philip's secret away, but he added one of those elements. One of those elements was his. Screw it. I'm calling Philip out. He was the one that did the short rest. He wanted it was a cursed land. And I said, "No, it sounds good. You know me. I don't care."
Thematically, it makes sense.
But it was deadly.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we were all hurt pretty bad. It was pretty cool. I loved it. Much fun.
Cool.
Joyce ran out of healing spells entirely.
I would imagine under those
we had 2 clerics, and they were down to like 2 spells each total.
2 clerics?
2 clerics.
Oh boy.
2 clerics, rogue, fighter, wizard, and warlock.
Well, it just goes to show, I think, it seems like those monsters aren't typical for your level party, even though you had a couple extra.
Yep.
Most likely they didn't follow the adventure design did not follow the challenge appropriate for character paradigm, which does cheapen play, in my opinion, in a way.
What cheapens play?
making sure you adhere to the appropriate encounter level thing.
Yeah.
And also having the no short rest.
Yep.
So that takes away a lot of the stuff about 5th edition that makes it easy for players to win,
I agree.
for players to survive.
Right. I did think Philip, though, did do one thing favor for us, because there's an opening scene where you come to this keep and you fight these 2 ghost-like children, these twins.
Oh my God.
An undead tree, 4 whites, and there's this pair of massive, they're called some kind of vulture bird things. They're like
Death vultures
huge,
or something.
and they literally use vomit. They'll drop vomit on you to damage you. But anyway, they're all in this courtyard, and it's basically when this happens, the white and we fought the whites, and we got smacked around a little bit, but he moved them out to the gates, and we had a series of fights. But basically the way it stood is all those undead in the big tree attacks you, and then the vultures would look over and guard, are always keeping watch. I would think the vultures would be like, and they had eggs up there, so they're aggressive, right? And we're not talking regular vultures,
Well, again, maybe that was the way the encounter was supposed to be run, because sometimes module creators will say, here's an encounter in 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round, or they'll give tactics or whatever.
What do you think, Patrick?
I
If
don't know.
if he had done that, brought them in round by round, I think we still would have got hurt, maybe killed.
I think it would have been a TPK.
If you had all of them there
Yeah.
attacking you.
Even if he brought it in slowly. But having said that, I wonder if Philip noticed a lot of DM's Dave's modules are written for like 5th, 8th, and 13th level characters. So he has adjustment suggestions. So I think Phil used it, but I don't know. Phil did a good job. He spread them out. So our encounters were the 4 whites.
Mhm.
Then we had.
It was still a challenge.
Well, without a short rest, what would have been the difference?
If you had a short rest, what would
No, my point is we didn't get short rest. So did it really make a difference whether we fought them all? I guess it would have made a difference in terms of number of attacks, and they would have been draining our hit points faster.
Also, with no short rest, you don't have access to your hit dice, and you don't have access. Well, at least I didn't have access to an extra 3 levels of spells I could have recovered.
Oh, yeah, true. But I had a hell of a time. Thought it was great. Loved it.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was good. It was
For a one shot.
Nail you to the wall challenging.
Yeah, it was. All right, cool. Well, anything positive or exciting from you, Joseph? Anything fun you didn't play, but anything game related you got to do this week?
Nope.
How about you, Patrick? I know you worked like a madman.
Yeah, 2 80-hour weeks in a row, and after tomorrow morning, I have another 4 whole days to myself.
Dude.
On the 30th will be my 41st birthday and my
right.
wedding anniversary.
Oh wow! Congratulations! That's awesome. How many years?
Say that again.
It's going to be my 41st birthday and my 7th wedding anniversary.
Oh wow!
Congratulations! What 7th anniversary? Wedding anniversary? You said?
Yes.
Wow! 3 more years. You have 10. That's sweet.
Great.
Cool. All right. Shall we move on to some call-ins and/or emails?
Oh, speaking of emails, before I let this slip and Josh gets angry. He never gets angry.
He's angry.
He sent me a couple of stories by way of Facebook Messenger, which I'm putting up on my phone, which is why I'm looking down. I know it's rude. How rude. So one of them I'm kind of excited by because I checked it out.
Oh,
it's a Dark Sun spiritual successor called Red Dawn.
Yes.
It's on, and it's, I believe, it's being kickstarted. And I read the blurbs on it, and it's pretty much Dark Sun, Athos, all that stuff. using different wordings, but all the same stuff.
Oh,
At least on the surface. I don't know if there's cannibal halflings or not because they didn't mention that.
he sent me the link too, but I didn't get to read it.
I didn't see anything in there about dragon high lords, but they have what do they call it? Sorcerer kings
Mm,
and queens. So
okay.
and you got to have some queens in there because of the time we live in.
Hmm.
Apart from that, I mean, it uses words that some people didn't like slavery. Because
Oh no.
slavery exists on this world. I can't remember what the name. It's not Athens. It's something else.
Hmm.
But apparently, some folks are not happy about that, which makes me want to go buy it.
Yeah.
So,
That's I don't know. I just wish some people would grow a spine.
And it wasn't just that; it was the word slavery. It depicts it's a shattered world where the moon catches fire, so there's never any night.
Whoa.
Always daytime.
Wow.
So the world is kind of burnt to a crisp, and
That's interesting.
so of course whole civilizations have died out. So I don't know if in the text I didn't notice it anywhere, but some people are reading genocide into that, and genocide's bad, so we shouldn't have that.
Well, genocide is bad, but so what? We're talking about games here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's some conflict.
Right.
Slavery, genocide. I don't know. As a dungeon master, that sounds like conflict.
I don't think it really matters anymore what kind of product anybody puts out. Somebody somewhere is going to have a bug up their ass and they're going to complain about it. I think a word to all you creators out there, ignore it.
Yeah.
I
I
plan.
hope they ignore some of I get a bug up my butt. I mean,
Yep.
I look for certain things. If
Hold on. Yeah, I just got a bug out. So
like the
Oh.
Sorcerer Kings and Queens,
Yes.
the new product, they used to just be Sorcerer Kings, but they had to add Queens for one reason or another. It may just be they thought it was okay, and I counted because that's how I am. There are eight city states. Only 3 of them are headed by queens. So at least there's more men heading up these things than women.
Because that's how it
That's
should
okay.
be.
I guess I'm not quite as bothered by that.
Mhm.
I think in a sword and sorcery setting, there has to be like a sorceress queen somewhere.
I agree.
I'm not. It's more just annoying when they replace. If it's just there, it's one thing. Like
Well,
I was never bothered by in let's say heavy metal.
Yeah.
That the main protagonist, when
Mhm.
it comes down to it, is a woman.
Yeah.
Valkyrie or whatever they call
Yeah.
her.
The warrior woman. Yeah.
The warrior woman. It was a woman. It never bugged me. Xena never bugged me for being a woman, although I was kind of perturbed when everybody was like, I can't wait till she fights another girl. It's so hot. I'm like,
What does that even mean? Here's
Wow, you need to get out more.
yeah.
Well, what it is I think we're just inundated in this society with so much, we got to be equity and inclusion.
Right.
Like, look, it's cool that you want to do that stuff. I mean, that you want to include people, but when you're over the top and you're in your face about it, it's like, it gets old. It gets old. Just do whatever you want to do, but man, don't act like you're
I
something.
tend to not be interested when it's introduced as a feature of the game and not a natural side effect of
Right.
the game.
If you lead with identity, I'm totally out.
Right.
The second piece is Magic the Gathering announces a new D&D crossover set. Totally not interested, but shout out to Josh for sending us some stories. I don't know. I know, Randy, you're not too much into Magic.
I don't do the magic thing. Patrick?
The D&D sets kind of brought me back into Magic. I went out and I bought myself a few sets. I really enjoyed them. I think the D&D crossover stuff should have been done a decade ago.
I agree. I agree that I think it's a cool idea from a company standpoint. I think it's smart to put the two IPs together. I remember when Watsy bought D&D, and I thought, man, there's going to be a Magic the Gathering. That's going to be the setting. They're getting rid of Greyhawk and Forgotten Realms, and they're going with whatever they had.
That was my fear.
And, well, I wouldn't call it fear because I thought the cards looked cool. I know people were worried about it's going to be this or that, but I was like, if you're going to launch a new edition, you might as well launch a new setting. I thought that seemed reasonable.
Well, the thing is, I didn't think it was just going to be an additional setting. I thought it was going to be, it's going to be Magic the Gathering, the role-playing game, and stop being D&D. We're not going to adventure in the realms anymore or in Greyhawk. I thought it was just going to be replaced by, Magic's setting. But although I think the whole 5th edition thing where they have source books for each one of Magic the Gathering's sets or realms, I think that's actually really cool.
Well, the background or the setting behind Magic the Gathering is, I mean, you don't, okay, maybe some people get into that and there's a lot to be had, but I still, even just from the little bit I played in the cards, it seemed like a cool background, though not necessarily well developed, but it might be in like books or the website. There might be lore out there that there's got to be lore that I don't know about.
Although, speaking of Josh's story there, I think it was yesterday or the day before, he was telling me that I guess upcoming their Magic the Gathering is supposed to be doing a crossover with like Cyberpunk, and I have no clue how that would work at all.
And Lord of the Rings.
Is Lord of the Rings, I guess,
some
because it's fantasy, but is there tech in Magic the Gathering?
I don't believe so.
I don't see how Cyberpunk even has anything to do with that.
No clue.
But I think it's just going to be a standalone set where it's going to have the same Magic the Gathering rules, just a different skin.
Yeah.
Look, Magic's the king. Let's just admit it. So
I
whatever they want, and they kind of print gold. They just print money. So
I always thought Dr. Richard Garfield got his PhD from creating the Philosopher's Stone, which allowed him to turn cardboard into gold.
He's a mathematician, by the way.
Yeah,
smart dude.
Who is the guy?
Richard Garfield, creator of Magic the Gathering and several other games. Oh, I want to do a retread here. I screwed it up because we're not going to do. I think we should just say we're trying to. We're probably getting rid of the positive and negative material plane. I'm just kind of announce that people that are listening. We're just going to give our opinions on things. It's just going to be there, and if you don't like it, you got to listen. And this is not one of those. It's probably going to happen tonight, but we got several topics before we get to the main topic. But Mystara we talked about last week, Joe, and I read that PDF that guy produced. The turtles aren't the only weird races in there.
Oh, they got all the 5e races in there as far as I know.
No, not just that. They got like a little fox dude, the Rakasta, I think.
Yeah.
And they got all kinds of weird.
That's a 5e thing. That's in one of the.
That was original. That was a race back in the day.
I know, but what I'm saying is in 5e they have a Rakasta in one of the. One of the source books, I believe.
Oh, there's all kinds of weird little races. I just thought, telling you that, I figured you wouldn't like that. 1,000,001 races.
Sorry, that brings back some memories.
Free PDF online. Did you hear about it? They wrote up this guy, Glenn Welch.
Oh,
is that right?
I know why you didn't hear about it, because you didn't listen to our podcast. Said that on our podcast.
Dude. Who is this guest?
Or it just went in one ear now.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to listen to your podcast at work, and if something comes up, it probably did go in one ear and out the other.
I do
Spotify for whatever reason. I don't want to tap the rewind 10 seconds like 30 times.
Right. I do this a similar thing while I'm working. I listen to podcasts, and sometimes details float right through.
Yeah.
All right, so time for the messages.
Yeah, set up the call in.
It's going to be a long haul here. Lots of messages.
Okay, just play them right through.
Onward to Jason.
Dude, Daddy's working. Go. Get.
My longest running campaign as an adult Well, see, the adult's the problem here, right? So probably it's Carl Rodriguez's Broken Lands game that we've played off and on for, I participated in it maybe 6 months, if that much. Yeah, not very long, unfortunately. I would love, so we're just lightly touching these systems. We are not delving really deep into any of these systems as we system hop. I would love to delve deep into a system. So Arlen Walker, live from Helm's Wasteland, just started up a Astonishing Sorcerers and Swordsmen of Hyboria game that we're saying is going to be a long-running game, and if that's the case, hopefully we'll delve really deep into that system. I hope so. Carl's running a Twilight 2000 game using the new Free League rules. Hopefully we're going to do that for a long period of time. But historically, no, they've just been touching the surface.
It's what we thought probably was the case.
Yeah. For us, for me, I know in my adult life, probably, well, technically as adults, 18 or older, right? I think I think that Seven Spheres was 3 years for me.
Yeah.
So 3 actual years. That was long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So other books you didn't mention. You did bring up Conan, and the Robert E. Howard is my favorite flavor of Conan, followed by, and I don't know if this counts or you're going to do a separate series on comics, but if we're going to count comic books as literature, then the Roy Thomas run Savage Sword of Conan. Yeah, once they stopped adapting the Howard stories and, did their own storyline. That's my second favorite version of Conan. I also really like the Gardner Fox books. He does like Kothar the Barbarian, and he has like a wizard and a thief character, and they're just kind of pulpy sword and sorcery, quick reads, but they're really fun. So I do like the Gardner Fox books quite a bit.
I only read Roy Thomas a little bit with the Savage Sword. I've got one left that I know of in my collection, and he's right. That's some good Conan stories.
The Timothy Zahn novels were a great shout out. I agree with you. Heir to the Empire should have been the next movies made. Of course, you can't make them now. I mean, I guess you make them with the crazy CGI, weird looking people thing. But yeah, that was a huge misstep on Lucas's part. Also by Timothy Zahn, he did a series called Cobra or Cobras, which was basically humanity was in a sci-fi series fighting some aliens or something, and the people got turned into cyborgs to fight them. And they had like a laser in their leg and laser fingers or something. I don't remember exactly. But after the war, then the regular humans were scared of the cyborgs, and they put them off to another planet. And so that was like the second book and third book. I don't remember the details, but they were kind of neat. I think I read all the James Bond books as a kid. Rereading them as an adult, it's a different experience, but they were definitely influential to some degree, especially like with traps. Dr. No as a whole thing where he's going through like traps as he's escaping. What else? I don't know. I read a lot of novelizations and movies, but I don't know how much that counts because that's a big crossover, right? Heinlein, Robert Heinlein. Is it Robert? Anyway, Starship Troopers, and he wrote a whole bunch of books. Heinlein was really influential, really great author. I know he's kind of fallen out of favor a little bit these days, but I would hold his works up. At least some of them is definitely worth reading.
I know him, but I've never read Robert Heinlein. Have you, Joe?
I've read several. I read Starship Troopers, which you should really read it if you like the book. I mean, the movie, you'll like the book more, most likely.
Most likely you'll like the book more.
It's short, too, not very long, but a lot of Heinlein's novels are pretty long. Stranger in a Strange Land, Time Enough for Love. They're very, unfortunately, kind of too sexual for me to really recommend.
Right.
It covers some interesting science fiction concepts, but it has some really weird vibes to it. Some of the stuff. Starship Troopers, absolutely not. It's very straightforward.
Cool.
So the other thing I'll put up there, and this is kind of a weird call out, and I'm driving the car. But there's a book called Remember the Alamo, or Return to the Alamo. I'll call you back when I get home and give you the right title. I've got it on the shelf. There's a trilogy of books. They did the Alamo, they did Custer's Last Stand, and they did Gettysburg, I think. And basically, they sent time travelers back to change the history. In the Alamo book, it was written like early 80s, they sent a bunch of Vietnam vets back to win the Alamo because of some oil that was found somewhere, and they wanted to change the rights of who owned whatever. And they're not great books. They're kind of, of course, they went back to modern weapons. And not great books, but they're kind of interesting, and they definitely influenced my ideas on time travel and fantasy games.
Never heard of those.
A lot of these I haven't heard of. I didn't read any Star Wars novels. So
Jason's I think he's really well read. He talks about getting a lot of books and reading them. So I think he's read a whole lot of books.
I actually ordered a new motorcycle helmet that's got Bluetooth in it, so I'll be able to call you from the motorcycle here soon. Anyhow, we're talking about books. The other series that I read, almost all of them back in the day when I was like in high school. Well, not just high school. This was even earlier than that. This was like middle school and like 5th grade, I think. But the Mac Bolan books, remember those? All those Golden Eagle books? Mac Bolan and Able Team and Phoenix Force, or was it Phoenix Team? Anyway, but if you don't know who Mac Bolan the Executioner is, you need to go back and research that. Basically, he was the Punisher before the Punisher existed. And all those books, obviously those are modern men's fantasy or men's adventure kind of books, but you can take the plots and obviously adapt them to just about anything. And we used to play a lot of Top Secret and Mercenaries' Eyes and Private Eyes back in high school. So
Mac Bolan.
I think that they made Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins loosely based on the Executioner series, I think, if I remember it correctly.
Huh.
And Jason is free to correct me on that.
Yes.
Okay, one alibi fire. Well, I told you I was going to call you back. Remember the Alamo with an exclamation point is a book by Kevin D. Randall and Robert Cornett, according to Wiki or Google. Just Google Remember the Alamo time travel. It'll pop right up.
Writing that down.
There was another kind of weird time travel series of books. They all have a date number on them, like 1888 or 1834 or something like that. But I can't remember the author. I'd always meant to start that, because essentially they go back in time and change history and stuff like that. Wish I could remember the author or anything really substantial about it.
By the way, Remember the Alamo by far is the best of those 3 books. The other ones got silly, because in Remember the Alamo, they actually brought back, like say, modern weapons, and then they had explained to the defenders of the Alamo, oh yeah, this is why this works this way, and stuff like that. Where in the later ones, like by the time it got to the Civil War one, which I think was Remember Gettysburg, they had futuristic guns that looked like muskets, but actually they were futuristic. It is kind of stupid. It got stupid by then. It was more interesting when they were trying to explain all of the modern equipment. But anyway, that's a tangent. So now I'm going to finish listening to what you're talking about now, which is, well, I'll call you back when you're done talking about what you're talking about now.
Jason.
Well, heck, you guys didn't have much to say about the influence of books there after you gave your recommendations. I thought I had to wait. Didn't have to send you a gobbledygook message. So the other great thing about reading, and I think the more you read, the more the tropes are in your head, which makes it easier to improvise. I think that's huge. And that's also, if you're going to be playing a certain genre, if you read a bunch of stuff on that genre, a bunch of books, in that genre, it helps you get in those mannerisms and those kind of things. So if you're going to play like a noir game, Private Eyes and that kind of thing, Sam Spade, then if you read a bunch of those kind of books, you'll be able to come up with those quippy one-liners and all that a lot easier. So the more you're immersed in a genre of literature, easier it will be to improvise and come up with stuff on the fly when you're running that as a GM. Or at least that's the theory.
Well, that's interesting because I agree with that idea that you should read up on those. But when you listen to authors, even RPG authors, and how they research for their books, I've read a lot of them, mainly from watching in D&D, but they talk about reading all sorts of books. And they suggest reading lots of different things, not stuff just in the genre that you're tackling. That's what they say. But I would agree with Jason. I think you'd want to read, if you're going to run, a modern, magic in the modern world, you should read Dresden, and those sort of novels, I would think.
Right. But you can easily pick on that particular example you just gave. I think I might have said this. If you're going to run magic in the modern day, you're going to have to pick, likely, maybe not, maybe you don't even make a decision. It may not come up. But a lot of those novels that Dresden falls into that category, they always have all of the monsters from all of the possible legends you can even think of. And none of them, they have them all. Every one of these kind of stories, they have to have ghosts, they have to have vampires, they have to have werewolves, they have to have dragons, they have to have all the stuff. And it's kind of silly.
You think it's just because it's boring?
It's overdone. It's way over.
Okay.
I've never played Everon. I don't know. I play Rifts if I want to play Kitchen Sink, right? But the idea of clerics and ideals is interesting. I think it really depends on the makeup of the world. In Moorcock's world, the idea of a lawful or chaotic cleric makes sense. And I think in some worlds that definitely works very well. What bugs me, and now this is going off on a tangent, but what bugs me is when D&D, and I think Pathfinder allows this, you have atheist clerics, and they can have no gods at all, and that doesn't make any sense to me, because where are they getting their powers from? Where are they drawing their? So to me, a cleric has a deity and has a patron no matter what. And long chaos, well, then you have the gods of long chaos, like Moorcock has. But if you're an atheist, you don't have any, there's not an atheist god, right? Maybe there is. I don't know. I haven't looked at these stupid worlds.
That's interesting. I've thought that too. I found that so idiotic. Had players in Pathfinder when they let you choose your cleric of some sort of, you build your own specialty cleric. So you choose your domains, and players will of course cherry pick those domains. I'm even more stringent. If I'm running D&D, my gods, if I was going to run 3rd edition, they would have certain domains you could pick. You don't get to pick your own. One or two of our players likes to do that a lot, cherry pick domains.
I think the concept of an atheist in like a fantasy world where the gods have obvious power.
Yeah.
I think atheists would be seen as lunatics.
It's one thing to not respect or want to follow them. It's another thing to say they don't exist. You could run around and try to convince people it's an illusion.
Or maybe that it's just wizardly magic with trappings of a cleric.
But you have to go a long way to convince a lot of people that.
Yeah, true.
And if you're going to have an atheist cleric, how is that different than just a sorcerer who uses divine spells?
Right.
Which they have those too.
Right. Yeah. It's weird.
It's built into Pathfinder 2nd edition.
Anyhow, of course, I'm also of the mindset that paladins are going to be lawful good. If you want to have the equivalent of a paladin, kind of, sort of, who's a different alignment, okay. But they still need to be tied in with that god. And to me, I'm going to call them something different, because paladins are a specific thing. But, I guess I can go a little bit on that either way. You could definitely have your chaotic paladin, like I'm brain farting. It's a bad day. I want to say the Kroger, because I just passed a grocery store. the hell's he called? The bad guy in Highlander. The
Kurgan.
Kurgan.
Man, my brain is not working. Anyway, the bad guy in Highlander in the movie effectively is an evil paladin, right?
Maybe.
Wait,
I don't know.
I think that's kind of.
Is it just me, or is Jason cutting out?
Yeah, I think
he's
it might
got
be his
bad
new.
sound issues.
Maybe it's his motorcycle helmet.
Maybe. I
But
will
Kurgan.
try to make sure that it sounds better for the people whenever I, put it through the Audacity program.
The audacity of you to do that.
So if you couldn't tell, he's wondering what the Kurgan is class-wise, and he's supposing that he's an evil paladin, but I don't think so. He doesn't really, apart from the Highlander or the whatever they are from wherever they're at, aliens, whatever. The only real power they have is not dying when they get their head, unless they get their head chopped off. They can heal pretty quickly from their wounds. They can
absorb
hide
the memories and experience of the person who they behead.
And they can hide their swords. They have like a dimensional pocket.
He also made a comment about different aligned paladins. I remember a Dragon magazine, I think, that came out during first edition era, and they had all the 9 alignments, paladins of those alignment: lawful, neutral, chaotic, evil. And at first I was like, that's kind of cool. Then I thought, no, you know what it is? I have a hard time, even in 13 days, where you can have the paladin that's like kind of a jerk and does a lot of damage. Then you got I think even 5e, you have paladins that aren't exactly good. I'm with Jason. To me, a paladin is both lawful and good. I have no defense of that. I don't know the origins of the word paladin, but when I think paladin, I think lawful, good, holy warrior.
Right.
The origin of the word paladin is it was the name given to, like Charlemagne's elite guard.
Oh,
are they religious affiliated?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I know that Charlemagne converted to Christianity at some point. I'm not sure when that was with relation to him having the Paladin Guard, but it's noted as a high point in church history that they finally converted Charlemagne.
Did Le Morte d'Arthur, did that predate Charlemagne?
I don't know.
Okay. Both French, right?
The stories that led up to it, I think, did, because the legends of King Arthur or an Arthur figure are all stories from not the first century, but like 7th, 8th, or 9th century, something like that, if I'm remembering correctly.
Right.
It's way back.
Okay. Definition, yeah.
Hey guys, I just started listening to your comments.
Go ahead, Patrick.
I'm sorry. Charlemagne was 7th century, and Thomas Mallory wrote Le Morte d'Arthur 15th century, I believe.
Okay.
Right. Something like that. I mean, that's when he wrote them, but he drew from legends about and stories about it that have been kicking around for a while.
Jason Richter or Joe Richter, depending how you want to refer.
I'm going to restart.
Okay.
Hey guys, I just started listening to your comments to Jason Richter or Joe Richter, depending how you want to refer to him. Just to clarify for you, when you talk to anybody that is not conservative, libertarian is far right wing. So I know that there's a difference between a Republican and a libertarian, or somebody has right wing conservative beliefs and libertarian beliefs. But when you talk to somebody that's not right wing or conservative, a libertarian means right wing to them. So just be aware of that.
Not only that, but amongst the libertarians, there are libertarians who are I don't know how, but libertarians who are communist, and on the one side, and then you have libertarians that are anarchists on the other side, and not the bomb throwing anarchists, just leave me alone anarchist. And so, right. So if you talk to somebody who doesn't know anything about, really doesn't know anything about libertarian, whether they're on the right or the left, it's funny. So conservatives will often call libertarians left wing, and then the Democrats or liberals will often call libertarians right wing, like Jason is saying, and it comes from a really just ignorance.
Doesn't also the issue of the word liberal? That's not really left wing progressive. I mean, a classic liberal, is more like it's closer to being a libertarian, isn't he?
Right. That's what a lot of libertarians claim, that they are classically liberal, in that they think that people should be left alone to do what they will as long as you're not hurting somebody.
Yeah, and I think the conservatives and Republicans have, and I was guilty of it too, absconded the word liberal, and now they got little L and big L liberals they talk about. And really, liberals should not be ascribed to way left. Should not.
No, they're progressives on that end.
Authoritarian.
Authoritarian. Yeah.
Way too authoritarian to be considered.
Or collectivist, which kind of implies authoritarianism too. Yeah.
Yeah, which is communism too.
Yeah.
Which is funny. I don't know. Yeah, it's a bunch of labels. It's weird to use them now. They mess the words up.
It's yeah. Yeah.
And there's so many labels, nowadays that.
What's a right-wing authoritarian?
Well, they'll say it's Nazi.
I don't think that's true, though.
For most of us who are more traditionally minded, will call Nazis leftists because it says they're a national socialist.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Between the national socialist and say like a Marxist, there are some. So and it's worth looking at.
Every time I hear the word Nazi, I'm reminded of Inigo Montoya's line from Princess Bride. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
In the present day, it's lost all meaning.
Gosh, do that a lot.
So many folks on the left, when you say, well, Nazis are national socialists, they're socialists. And they're like, no, they're not.
It's the pejorative that everyone jumps to.
Yeah.
Okay. More, Jason?
I would also submit that, I think Tila was raised alongside Adam, and her dropping him at the ceremony is kind of like a tomboy sister messing with her brothers. So that's not so unusual. And yes, the position was called man at arms even when she took it. At least that's what I remember. I might be wrong. I only watched it once a little while ago now. But anyhow, back to listening.
Yeah, that was perplexing. I could sort of see that, especially the way Prince Adam replied. Well, because after she did that, he said something. She's like, I know everything about battle. I'm the queen of all battles. Or it wasn't that, but some comment. And then he said, well, you don't know everything, implying she doesn't know who he's He-Man. But I guess that could be a sisterly thing. But I'm probably too biased at this point to see it that way. But I'll go with it. I don't care.
I had 4 sisters, and some were more tomboyish than others.
Mhm.
And wrestling around is something that we all did. So
Sure. Yeah.
as children.
To be fair, it didn't bother me till later.
Yeah.
So I'm probably backwards biasing. So that's fine.
You brought up the fact Man at Arms was badass when he showed up, which I was going to bring up, so thank you. Also, I would submit to you that He-Man did not get killed a second time. I think that's a mischaracterization. If you look where he's stabbed the second time at the last episode, it is not through the heart. It is like lower, it's lower. It's like under his left lung, I think. And again, it's been a couple weeks since I've seen the show, or a week or two. I don't know. But anyway, he wasn't stabbed center of mass. He wasn't stabbed in the heart. It's like under his left lung. So he isn't necessarily dead per se yet. So I think we're going to find out that he's laying there and he's friggin' mortally wounded or something like that when we hit episode 6. I honestly don't think he's dead yet. I think he's lying there near death. But so just to say.
Okay, maybe that's true. I'm not arguing that. It makes it a little less stupid then. Just a little.
And you know what? All things considered, I want to be wrong about Masters of the Universe Revelation. I really do.
I don't care.
Yeah, I'm saying I don't. I'm just arguing now mainly with Joe. So if I'm wrong or right, it's fine. That's not what I see. Maybe they'll change. But here's the deal. Even if they change it in the next 5, it doesn't make my analysis of the first 5 wrong.
Right.
Yep.
I do think that at least in the first few episodes, Tila definitely comes off as a spoiled brat. And she definitely is not portrayed heroically in the first couple episodes because of her attitude, not necessarily want to help people, want to be out for herself. The whole screw you people for not telling me a secret that somebody asked you to keep from me. If he asked, if somebody asks you not to share something, do you share it anyway just because you're somebody's friend? No. If Randy says, Jason, I'm going to confide in you, but don't tell Joe. Should Joe get angry at me for not telling him?
Yes.
That's asinine. No. I've seen people say, oh, that's gatekeeping. That's not gatekeeping. Whatever. The freaking king was in the same boat, So, and I've seen people lay into the king is overreacting too. Man at arms like he didn't get his head cut off, to be honest. But no, Teal was definitely an a-hole the first couple episodes, no question.
Yeah, but here's the deal, Jason. As much as I appreciate you keeping all those secrets when I was talking about Joe to you, I do think, and that's reasonable, but I do think that oh God, I lost my train of thought. I was just thinking about keeping secrets. What was he saying about dang it. I lost it. I don't know what I was going to reply.
I'll just say one more time, and maybe I haven't said this precisely. Characters having bad motivations isn't necessarily bad writing, unless, especially if they're like the main protagonist, they have bad motivations.
Yep.
Somewhere along the story, they're revealed to be dickheads for being that way, and then they repent in some kind of way, seek forgiveness, change, something like that. If that's in the arc, then it could be, and it's okay for characters to be dickheads.
Yeah, and I got it now. So if you tell someone a secret, right, and did Man at Arms know that Prince Adam was He-Man, and then Prince Adam say, "Don't tell Tila"? Did he say that, or don't tell anyone who I am?
Do we know?
I mean, in the show it didn't happen. So I'm asking more Patrick. In the previous episodes, was it don't tell Tila?
No, I think the few people that knew that Adam was He-Man was like a safety concern.
Okay.
I really think Adam wanted Tila to know, but would be afraid that if she knew, I mean, their relationship would change. Obviously,
okay.
Maybe Tila would like take risks that she wouldn't before, or that maybe some things she does would change, and that would, I think it was a safety concern.
I have no idea. That seems out of the realm of the show, because it seems like it was baggage that I didn't know about, because all of a sudden she's lost her mind because why didn't you tell me?
Right.
So yeah.
The fan service, by the way, comes in where all the different characters show up. So you have cameos from a bunch of different characters and things like that. I don't remember, somebody that is more into the stuff than me, but there's nods like to the comics like DC did and stuff. And there's nods to Andrea, apparently is a character from one of the comic books. So there's a lot of nods that way, and a lot of characters, like lesser characters, pop up in the show. So that's where the fan service comes in. At least that's my understanding of it.
Is that like Beast Man and the dude with the eyes, Patrick, the technical guy? With
Triclops, Beastman, Merman appeared in an episode, although he definitely got a bunch of voice lessons, between the Filmation cartoon and this, because in the old cartoon he talked like a Murloc.
Oh, really? Like from WoW? Is that WoW?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we all know that's how fish people will talk.
Right.
Of course.
Is precisely it. And I would say that is fan service of a sort, and I'm sure a lot of people who saw that liked it, and there, especially if they had their favorite figure or character from either the old cartoon or the comic book or the line of toys or whatever in that particular cartoon. They were like, oh, that's cool. However, I think the large fan service for the folks that wanted He-Man to be the man was not served. And I think that was probably the bigger fan base than the others. I could be wrong.
Not in the first five episodes. He was not the man.
Right. I'm saying
Mhm.
what I'm saying is likely the larger fan bases, the fans who wanted to see He-Man be the man, not the ones who wanted their particular article displayed within the cartoon.
I'm just glad that Kevin Smith didn't decide to go with the other version of fan service.
Correct.
What's the other? Okay, I'm lost, guys. What's
right?
Fan service also might refer to creative camera angles to see maybe.
Gee, please.
Fan service for the more demented fans.
Gotcha. Okay, pass. Yeah. And here's the deal. Like I said, the last 5 episodes fixes everything. Then I was like, hey, all right, I'm glad that happened, but it doesn't. Like I said, doesn't change the first 5.
No.
Yeah, my opinion hasn't changed much either, but I hope I'm wrong.
Well, I'm not gonna watch it because I don't have Netflix. So
you're coming over and watching at my house, all 10.
Nope.
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
5 hours.
Yep.
I don't think so. I'll stab my eyes.
You'll love it.
Or I'll stab your eyes.
Yeah, that'd be good. Probably a good move if I make you watch all 10.
Oh, it's just game.
Yeah, that'd be better.
Oh, even better.
5 hours spent.
All right.
All in all, interesting show. Definitely not boring. And I mean, your show is in your podcast. Although I was hoping the Mudsword Chronicles would be a more regular thing. Was hoping to hear development of that. But I do look forward to it as it progresses. Anyhow, take care. Talk to you next time.
Thank
Man,
you, sir.
we can't use him as a segue.
Yeah, we need some mud sword action. We do.
We have
Holy
Taylor.
crud.
Dude, Taylor, yeah, man.
A lot of them are short, so
Representing.
like this first one's only 3 seconds, so hold on to your hat.
Kickstart Mudsword. I would back it.
All right, dude.
If
think
you
that's right.
use a third party to crowdsource, it will not be Kickstarter. It will be Indiegogo or something like
We're going to talk about that right after this. Your Kickstarter. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm more along the lines of
So-
doing it privately.
Yep.
This is Taylor of Clerics Ringmail calling in to talk about alignment. I know that you had talked a little bit about using it in games. I tend to use it to represent sort of literary themes. So Law and Chaos is less Moorcock's Stasis and Change and more Howard's Civilization versus Barbarism, or London's Nature versus Mankind. So, but rather than kind of go into a too deep, I'm going to read to you from my homebrew, Weapons, Wits, and Wizardry, where I talk a little bit about alignment. Alignment. The cosmos are in turmoil. an incessantly shifting turmoil between the primal forces that spun creation into existence and likewise knocked it off of its axis. Good, evil, concepts of altruism and egotism, concepts steeped in the cultural relativism. These are trivial, grains of sand diluted in an ocean of form, an ocean that can carve the continents or drown the stars. Alignment is not a personality litmus, a role-playing crutch to prohibit player behavior. Creation is at stake, to create or be created in kind, and moreover, in whose image will that creation be likeness?
Okay. Keep hitting me because I'm not sure I'm there yet.
Sorry.
Order. Order is the triumph of man. Order is the imposition of will, the victory of the gods over the primeval, the rise of temples, the rise of cities. Order is construction. Order is growth. Order is the taming of nature and the bending of its workings to the altar of civilization. Divinity derives from order. The wild is the ineluctability of the tides, the unrelenting rhythm of the moon or the shadows in the forest, the persistent reminder that there is always something beyond the reach of mankind. The wild is the root that breaks the road, the vine that infiltrates mortar. The wild is primeval, progenitor. It is birth, it is change, is life and death in one.
Keep playing.
Entropy. Entropy lies beneath. Entropy was before the birth. Entropy will be thereafter. Entropy is the sea in which the buoy of creation bobs, its light weakly piercing the fog, its bell tolling, tired, in the rolling waves. And at the seams, at the cracks in the deep places, entropy seeps in, sometimes in fountains, sometimes in a treacle, but ever present, the promise that what is once was not, and what will be is not what is. Magic derives from entropy. A balance is achieved intrinsically by the triune pull. Where order builds, entropy destroys, but wild grows. Where entropy decays, order bulkheads and wild infuses. Where wild reforms, order shapes and entropy undermines. But this balance is not natural, not stable, instead the byproduct of cosmic impulses. It is ever-changing, one day destined to fall, the disk of the universe tipping, its contents spilling across the celestial sphere. When might that day come? None can honestly tell, but the servants thereby, the acolytes of order, the entropic cults, or the druids, none of them hesitate to speak of what wonders come beyond.
Dude. There's some pretty heavy duty writing about chaos and order, and then something.
I missed that. Is this something he wrote, or is
Yeah. It's his alignment, dude. Taylor's he's pretty well spoken, dude. Yeah. Cool. I'm not sure. I want to know how he applies that into his game, though. So, do you use the 9 alignments, or do you use something else? Or he implied at some point alignment's not that big of a deal. So I don't know what that means. If maybe characters just serve order, or they serve the wild, or they serve entropy.
He thinks Taylor and I would get along swimmingly.
Yeah, I think if it was me and had this backdrop, you would have some sort of rating within the 3. You wouldn't just entropy.
Right.
Those would be forces of nature. If you were in fully entropy, fully law or order, and fully nature, those would be the forces of nature. I mean, those would be the primordials if you were fully one of those. But most corporeal beings would probably be some mixture of the 3.
Wow. Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I think it'd be interesting to try. How do players describe their alignment in his game then? I loved his weapons, wits, and wizards. That was cool.
That's cool. 3 W's.
Yep.
It's also interesting how he has he called it triune or and I was thinking, I don't know why, but I was thinking of Dune, in that the power struggle is also a 3 power groups,
Yep.
and it was described as an unsteady because it's a tripod instead of being
Ah,
stable. So that's probably, I wonder if that had anything to do with this.
maybe. All right, he's got one more.
One more.
Lastly, negative material plane comment. So you can toss this voicemail to the back or not, whatever. Feminism in film. A good feminist film, in my opinion, Mad Max, Fury Road. Harkening back to Mad Max again. So what does it do to make it feminist? It portrays strong women well. They have motivations, they have strengths, they have weaknesses, they have flaws, they are human. And the film also acknowledges that not all women are strong women, in the same sense that not all men are strong men. Both sides of the coin, human. Kind of like Star Wars, the original trilogy with Princess Leia. She was a strong, organic character portrayed well. So, my two coppers, two good female portrayals, two feminist-friendly films.
I would throw Aliens in that, or
Yeah.
Alien and Aliens, both of those.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, that's fine. I have no issues with those. Well, Max, I watched Mad Max Fury Road, and I know Taylor likes it, but I remember thinking it was just okay. Maybe I should watch it again. 'Cause he described it one time, and it sounded much cooler than I remember.
That's because he liked it.
Yeah, true.
Everybody has different tastes, but I think we have many movies, no matter what the feminists of the today thinks, that they're still somehow still underrepresented. We have lots of good examples of strong women in films that have been out for a while. Oh, we have an addition.
We have our guest, dude.
Oh,
Speak of the devil.
he's arrived.
What's up, Taylor?
Finally made it.
Yeah, you
I made
did.
it in.
We,
All right.
we just finished call-ins.
Yeah, we just finished your call-ins, dude. So
Oh, nice. I
explain your
can't have to
alignment.
explain myself.
Yes.
Your alignment, especially.
Yes,
That's
explain
very
yourself.
cool, dude.
Explain.
I loved it. Loved hearing it.
Mhm.
Oh,
So-
fun. Yeah, I've been playing with a homebrew. I say homebrew. I fell in love with chainmail, and so I tried to go for. I've been putting together a OD&D type game, trying to incorporate the chainmail elements and the alignment. I thought it would be cool to have a three-way pull. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
So when you do, so I have a question. When your players, do they choose an alignment, and how do you articulate that on the character sheet?
Well, I'm wondering if I should turn the light off back there. It doesn't matter. So they,
Gives you a holy aura.
yep, I could get some ringmail on. I'd match my my namesake. So, yep, but yeah, and so the alignment stuff. To be honest, my groups tend to fall into one or two categories. They're the ones who don't really take alignments; they prefer to hang out in the middle, more mercenary. And then the more recent group where they just kind of go whole ham with it. So we ran a DCC game a couple years back, and the guy, one of the characters, because when you try to do the level 0, they bring up. They have this big table of all these backgrounds, and he rolled up Gong Farmer. We had no idea what that meant, and so we Googled it, and it was the only time I've ever gotten that guy to chuckle at a poop joke. So he and so he said, no, yeah, this guy got to be a servant of chaos. So that party kind of rolled with it. We had a blast. So either plenty of beer and pretzels or are far too mercenary for their own good.
So if someone picks an alignment, do they choose order, the wild, or entropy, or do you let them I'm almost picturing, Joe mentioned, you'd have order, then the wild, and entropy. You'd have this sliding scale. You'd have where your character is a little bit of this and a little bit of that, or is it pick one? Is that how you do it?
That's a good question. We have, like I said, my players haven't engaged with it enough to really. My players haven't engaged with it enough to really have to dove into it too much. I like the idea of the chart though, so I may keep that. So I'll design a character sheet, and you'll have a triangle and with little hatches.
There you
I was
go.
just saying I couldn't imagine a corporeal, like earthly being fully into one. That's probably a primordial type
Mhm.
being.
Yep.
Okay, so I was going to say, I was going to introduce Taylor, even though we kind of probably know what you can tell by his voice, from Clerics Ringmail. He's here with me. I'm Randy, and then Joe, and of course Patrick. I wanted to thank our call-ins. Even Joe at Hindsightless, he got under my skin a little bit, but that's okay. I'm sure I get under his, and he can keep calling and blasting me, and we can go back and forth, and I love it.
There's no way you can have people who differ in outlook not get under each other's skin to some degree if they talk. Once you start talking, all
Yeah,
bets
it's
are
gonna
off.
happen. But yeah, so Taylor, since you're here on Biggest Geekus, I'm going to give you a chance. We've done this with Patrick, so I'm not sure I've heard this. How did you get into gaming?
I got into gaming in middle school. I had a very stereotypical entry. A friend of mine had a buddy who lived up the street on the cul-de-sac who got his hands on some AD&D books, and so I was probably 8 and he was probably 6, and we had these old old to us AD&D books that we went and played with. How do I know it was AD&D? Well, because my first character was a monk. I knew nothing about the game,
Right.
literally nothing. And my buddy goes, "You should play a monk. They're really great at fighting." And we promptly got splattered because he may have been looking at the top end of the chart for that one.
Or thinking of Kwai Chang Kane,
Could have been, yeah, could have been.
because the monks really, you had to cheat.
Mhm.
You had
Monks
to,
were bad.
because they
Mhm.
had the only advantage they had was an extra hit die.
I forgot what level. And if they got to where they could do the quivering palm, that was pretty boss.
Yeah, you never get there. You get killed.
Right.
But exception, well, it wasn't much of an exception, but I don't remember where this came from. Maybe Oriental Adventures. They introduced it was kind of a Kai ability, or where you do a stare down with another practitioner of the martial arts.
Yeah.
And if you rolled well enough, you win. Kind of. Because I had a first level monk, and I was running a game. You were running the game, Randy.
Okay.
And there was a high level monk who was, lording it over us because he could. And I did the stare down with him.
Yeah.
And I won. He came and killed me because I win.
Sounds like something I would have done. How dare you win that, player?
Yeah.
Sounds a lot like Legend of the Five Rings with Yaijutsu duels.
Yeah.
Right. It was probably named similarly, I would think.
Okay. So you've been playing a while for sure, and you're getting into the Anchor podcast, and I hope you guys don't mind. I want to ask Taylor some things. And
Nice sword, by the way.
oh, you seen my sword? Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
Which one is that one? Oh, that's actually not even a real one. I got a real one somewhere else, but that was it's cool though. My wife got it for me. But how are you liking the podcasting? I listened today to your Don't Be Nice, which I love that podcast. And what motivated you? Just listen to everybody else on Anchor and saying, "Hey, I'm going to get in this."
Pretty much, because
Yeah.
I started the blog as a creative outlet, and I'm looking for my sword. Here it is.
Oh,
Here's my sword.
okay.
Is that a genuine replica?
That's cool.
Letter opener?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can vouch it is a genuine letter opener. I have some letters over here that have been opened with it. My wife bought this when she was study abroad in Spain. This was purchased at a medieval museum type thing in Segovia. So, but she brought it home, and she's like, and then I used it, and she goes, "What, you're using that?" I'm like, "Wait, why wouldn't I?" What'd you expect me? What did you expect me to do with it?
Letter opener. I'm opening letters.
So today with our 50th episode, we're gonna, unless you guys have some questions for Taylor.
How about you tell us about the things that you do gaming related on the internet? And then
Online?
we'll continue.
So I do the blog. First of all, I started that as a creative outlet. Used to run a lot of games in person before my little boys were born. My wife and I had twins in December of 2018. They were our little Christmas present. Literally, I got to claim them on my taxes the following year, which was a very nice Christmas present. But April Christmas present. But then the it's hard to get like more than 2 or 3 consecutive hours when you have a newborn. So for about a full year after they had been born, I didn't play, I didn't run, didn't do anything. And so they got a little older. They started sleeping through the night, and I started writing this blog. It started out, what am I working on? It's okay. I wrote, I drew a map this week. I wrote up some NPCs. I rolled up some dungeon keys, collated some house rules. I found the OSR through some message boards, and have gradually been infiltrating various places since then. Recently, against my better judgment, I got a Twitter, and I've been having a lot of fun. I've been having a lot of fun with that, not replying, or starting to or thinking about a reply and then keeping it to myself.
I've written so much stuff and then not pressed send.
Yeah.
I send.
Yeah, that's living on the edge.
I do most of my replying to weirdos on Facebook, and it's only really to one. And he's not even on my feed; he's on somebody else's feed.
Oh boy!
Pops in and is a lefty and is lefty all over the place. So it's usually just an animated GIF. The last one was of a child sitting in a chair with a toy electric screwdriver pointed in his nose. That was my last reply.
I've stopped posting anything on my own wall on Facebook, because it doesn't matter what I post, doesn't matter how innocuous it is, somebody gets butthurt about it. The last thing I posted on Facebook was the new trailer for the new Ghostbusters movie that I was really excited about. It turned into a fight.
I remember that. Crazy. You have a gift for that, Patrick.
I can talk about conversations I have with my cat, and somebody will turn it into Trump's a bastard. I'm
talking about cats. Okay. Well, let's jump into our main topic. Is really kind of, you call it a rehash, but I'm wondering on some of the bigger ideas that we've talked about in 50 episodes, if we've changed our mind on things, and I'd love to get Taylor's opinion on those as well.
Hey,
yeah,
we're conservatives. We don't change mine.
That's right. super duper right wing. Okay, so technical side of things, Joe in particular. So learning about Anchor, Zoom recording, YouTube, sharing call-ins. That was a problem for us initially.
But still is, because Anchor sucks. I mean, it's nice to have a place to play, to put your work out and then automatically have it disseminated out into the ether. But their interface is inconsistent between the mobile and app and the web app. And there's a lot about it that's dumb. And I've talked about it a few times on the podcast. Zoom is fine.
Yeah, Zoom's work very stable.
Yeah, we've tried. The first thing we tried was Skype, and had issues with that. And Zoom has been our friend since you got the license for it.
Yeah, the wasn't Discord was a short stint on Discord too.
Well, it was, the difficulties come in when you want to share audio. you have to jump through. For some reason, you got to jump through a lot of hoops for everybody who's on the stream together, or whatever you want to call it, to hear the same thing. You could always play it or add it in post, and everybody pretends they're listening to it and blah blah blah.
We did that once.
We did that a couple
We
months
had
ago.
to.
Yeah, but so far Zoom has been the most easy to do all those things that I've found.
How about you, Taylor? What have you found since you started doing the podcasting?
Yep.
What kind of things
I've
do you use?
been I have been recording a lot of what I do on the Anchor app, but I've found what I end up doing is I pull it off of the website, because the like you said, the app is not in the web interface, it's free for a reason. And so, like you said, Anchor is great. I love Anchor because it gives you that platform, and it distributes it to a bunch of different places for you. I had friends, Joe Richter among them. He pings me. He goes, "I see you pop up on my Apple feed." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't even know I was on Apple," but because I thought I was going to have to. It wasn't on their list. I thought I was going to have to go and add it, because they have an RSS link, so you can hook into other services that they don't automatically do. But so yeah, I jumped it. I found out I was on Apple kind of by accident, and because I hadn't done anything to do it. It's a great platform for that reason.
Yeah, speaking
And
of Joe, I'm sorry. I'm saying his call-ins are clear, really
Mhm.
clear.
Mhm. And I tend to record call-ins on my laptop more than I do on my phone. But when I'm doing the podcast, I always go in and pull the audio off of the website, because it's not easy. You have to like click the download link, but don't actually click it. Click right click and save as, and maybe that's a Firefox thing. But so on my podcast folder, I'll have like 7 or 8 audio files that I bring up in Spidacity. So that's Audacity, the video or the audio editor. I call it We've been calling it Spidacity as funny joke for because of their
versions. Yeah.
yeah. I think it's in the newer. I'm still on a pre-spyware version, and I've heard that they've since reversed the policy, and it's largely open source software. So they have contributors outside the ownership of the actual IP on there contributing to it, and they were never able to capitalize. The outrage on the proposal was so much that they kind of backed off of it. But I'm still gonna joke about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
When I heard you say that, I didn't catch the spy part. I just thought
Mhm.
some kind of Audacity kind of
Mhm.
clone or
Mhm.
fork or something like that.
Yep.
But no.
Yep, they did. Yep, absolutely. So yeah, I do have Audacity on my machine. I'll rip all of the audio off of Anchor, put it together, use the equalizers, and that Audacity is really nice for that, because I knew nothing about audio going in, and it only took 3 episodes before I felt comfortable making it to where it plays nice. And so Anchor goes in with a whole bunch of different stuff, but then to actually produce the episode, a third-party program, and it's all it's drag and drop. You take you pick the file, let it upload, let it publish. So yeah, Anchor's the platform, not the tool for me.
Right.
But
What about you? Go ahead.
I would say if you I know you have your process already, so maybe it's a moot point, but we started out recording outside of Anchor, or even we recorded our first 5 episodes before we even put anything out anywhere. We were figuring out what we're going to do. So we started outside of the Anchor paradigm. So the audio and video, kind of ignored the video at first, but the audio, I would just, from Zoom, you just get it as a file, and then it doesn't go into Anchor until I'm done with it. So I don't have to pull it out of there. It's just, I think it's maybe a little tiny bit shorter procedure overall.
Yep, run the filter and you're good to go. So yep, that's the way to do it. So
Now, what about the idea of YouTube? Joe has recently got us on YouTube, putting us on there. And are you planning on, or do you have a YouTube channel, or are you considering?
I do.
Oh,
I
okay.
do actually, and I this today on my blog. I think on the blog post I put out today, the episode on not being nice to your players is on YouTube. So I've uploaded a little bit of the back catalog. I say back catalog. I have 4 episodes.
That's cool though.
But yeah, I spun up. I spun up a YouTube, plugged in nothing special because, like I said, I was recording on all audio all the time. So it's the podcast logo followed by the waveform. So it's nothing special. But for folks who don't do Anchor, for folks who don't necessarily have the podcast player, it's a platform to reach people. And I know I've got a couple folks who have listened on it so far, and that's the name of the game. If you got the message out, and if you got people calling in and joining up and tandem casting, and that's success. You're driving conversation, and that's what the podcast ecosystem, the spirit of the podcast, is all about.
Right.
So, and podcast is way more fun to say than vlog. So,
Yes.
Oh yeah, vlogs. My daughter used to say that, vlog.
The only thing I get discouraged every once in a while because while our because on the app on the phone and the app on the web display things a little differently, but I look at the audience size and it can go so far up and so far down depending on where you are at during the week. And since we only have weekly, it can get down to not that our numbers are really big. We only have I think at best, our biggest number it reported was around in the 80s for estimated audience size. And then here recently, when I was sick and Randy did his solo, we had a little bit of a gap. It got down to like 13. I was like,
Maybe I'm not the talent.
No, it's just a gap. We had that one gap where we didn't even have an episode. So yeah.
Missed a week. Yeah. That'll do it. So that was my one thing with the blog is that was my rule. I want to put out a blog post every Saturday, and it started out every Friday, but then I moved it to Saturday for reasons. There are multiple social media platforms that have a sharing Saturday where it's like, hey, tell us all about what you're working on. And I'm like, oh, what a coincidence. I happen to be working on this. I wasn't timing this on purpose to take advantage of your magnanimous shilling Saturday option. But
I know our blog is Joe's done a good job of putting a few articles on there. I've only done one. I guess I just find that more time consuming. Do you think of the 3 things well, I guess you put your podcast on YouTube. That's not as big a big deal, but your blog, you said, is kind of your baby, right? You've been doing that much. Yeah.
Yep. I got into the blog because that was the cool thing at the time. And, well, I think it may have never been the cool thing, but that's not the point.
It was kind of big for a while. You were right.
Yeah.
Blogs were big.
Yeah.
So,
go
ahead.
I was just going to say the blog takes more time because I tend to do more stuff on it. For example, the episode took 2 commutes. So I talked about not being nice as a player and not being nice as a critic. That was my drive into work and my drive home from work the same day. So if I was guerrilla podcasting, like I don't care, I try to censor myself because I know I'm a potty mouth when given the opportunity. And so I try, if I didn't go in and edit it, I could have thrown that out that day. So the podcast is much, much quicker to put together than a blog post. But the advantage of the blog post is I can split it up. So if I have 10 minutes on my lunch break, I can play with a map. If I have half an hour after my kids go to sleep, I can roll up. And I'm thinking about maps because that's my favorite thing that I do. I'll put it's 10 to 20 room small dungeons with key, and that's fun for me. Mostly procedurally generated because there's a lot of pressure now. I don't know if it's just the nature of the newer school of thinking, but there's a lot of pressure on game masters, on referees to produce these complex narrative elements, to produce these epic stories and these interwoven plots and memorable characters. And you see this a lot with new GMs. They feel intimidated, and they feel intimidated because they feel like they need to weave this world together so that their players can experience it like they're going to the movies. And at the end of the day, there's a secret behind this, dear audience. The secret behind this is you don't. The story is what happens when you get there. And
story at the table.
Yep, absolutely. And the same can be said of dungeon design. Put the map together. There's a bunch of different procedural ways to generate that, and yeah, it's great. Almost all of my maps that I generate using the expert or the basic expert sets guide. It's 2d6 per room, one of them to tell you if there's treasure, one of them to tell you there's a monster. And if I want to go for a theme, I'll have an encounter list based on the theme. But what you do, just throw it together, see what happens to be there, and then, okay, now I know what's in these rooms. How do they interact? So the story tells the environment builds itself as it comes together, and then when the players arrive and experience the adventure, the story writes itself. So
yeah, I think the idea that the DM has to be an entertainer, which is what you're alluding to as a modern concept, is kind of puts a lot on the DM, and I think it's weird.
Okay, so something else that I want to talk about then is, and kind of want to direct first to Patrick, but I'd be interested with Taylor's opinion too. Because I think, I won't say Joe, I'll say me. I'm not yet mastered the art of letting people speak on the internet, where I'm shutting my mouth, my pie hole, and letting them do it, meaning back and forth. So what have you seen and what have you felt, Patrick, because you've been a guest here 2 or 3 times?
Okay, I guess I don't know what I'm being asked.
I'm saying, have I or Joe gotten better at not talking over each other or guests? I say no, I haven't. But
I think I can answer the question because I have this quality about me where it's really easy to talk over me, and my wife does it sometimes, but she's gotten better at saying sorry. I'm not going to step on your toes there. But anytime somebody interrupts me, sometimes I forget what I was going to say. But I think you guys have gotten better, because anytime I even open my mouth, sometimes Jill will say, "Hey, what were you saying, Patrick?" So I think it's improved greatly.
Joe's improved greatly.
Well, Randy, you are hyper conservative, so you cannot change.
Good. Taylor is listening.
Yep.
I think I just talked over Joe.
Yeah, I talk over people all the time. I'm 6'3". It's kind of accidental, but
no, it's purposeful.
Oh, I see what you did there.
I'm 6'2". Randy's 6'2". It's just part of the deal. They're over everybody.
I'm only 5'10", so everybody talks over me, I guess.
5'10" over the average.
That makes sense.
Yeah. How about this? This is anybody's. Do you think? And I would love to hear this as a person that listens, and especially guys that make podcasts. Picking topics, and we do segments. We're talking about changing our style a little. Do you think we've kind of been in a rhythm? And Joe could answer this too. Do you think it's something that we should continue to always sort of shake up, or should we keep it consistent?
I think we still have a little ways to go to really find our voice, our groove, because one, we only do this once a week. So if we did it more frequently, which is a challenge, but if we did, we probably would have found, I'm not saying we don't have one, but we might have found what it is. And we might have already done that, but I don't think it's set in stone. I think we have some growing to do. I
think you might also be, if you did it more often than once a week, I think you'd really be scraping the bottom of the barrel for topics.
If people do
And
weekly
guests, am I
podcasts
right?
all the time, and guests, yeah, people do weekly podcasts all the time, and I don't know how many in our space do. Well, we know one for sure. Old Grognard.
Oh man, he does daily.
Grognard, he does his daily.
Yeah.
Um,
They do. So does Jason Connolly's almost. Jason Connolly's 2 or 3 times. Well, I don't know. He has.
Yeah, Jason, he tries to do twice a week, I think, or was doing twice a week. He went on vacation for a bit and was podcasting every day. So that sounds like a great vacation to me. But and then he's back to more of a weekly cadence. I think he does a weekly thing now, or there were 2 this week, but it was also because of the Sonny Chiba passed. So
Right.
I had to do a special episode.
And Tenkar does his daily.
Right. He's kind of an old pro, though. That's true. He does. Do you think about that, Taylor? Or are you just kind of doing it when you have time, or is yours? So do you have a set amount of ones in mind? Do you trying to do it weekly now, or what are you?
I've been releasing one every other week, somewhat by not intentionally. That's just how it's going. I would be with the blog. I'm hard on a schedule. One of my big things is I like being consistent. With the podcast, when I started it out, I was like, I don't know, because the blog does take a lot of time. I don't know how much effort the podcast is going to take. So I didn't commit to it. I'm like, I'll put them out when I put them out. It'll probably be on Wednesdays. Don't know. And then it turns out, like I said, the podcasts are a lot faster for me.
Yeah.
So maybe I should have started with that and worked.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
With a solo podcast, it's probably, you don't have to worry about scheduling or anything like that. You just do it and you put it out on your day that you want to do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I have these days 3 days a week where I'm able to record based on my idiom of doing it on my commute. So,
Patch, and this is for any of you guys. Do you think our approach to segments, positive, negative material plane,
Come closer to your speaker or your
positive,
mic.
negative material planes, our approach to segments? You think the segmented podcast is a good idea? I've always kind of liked that. That doesn't mean it's right. So it's people that listen to it, and Joe's part of it. You guys have opinions on how that is, because we do try to do segments. So this episode is a little different.
I think if you're going to do segments, you might want to try to look into somehow bookmarking the podcast so that you can just click to whatever you want to hear. As some people can't listen to just the stream of consciousness podcast for very long. And Jeff can't listen to anybody just talk about something for any amount of time. It's why he doesn't watch the show.
Somebody of ours, yeah.
Podcasts aren't for everybody. So I listen to a lot of different kinds of podcasts, and that's why I'm not always up on everybody's, especially in the OSR space.
Podcasts are great for me because of the nature of my job.
Right. So I've listened to a lot of Joe Rogan and a lot of a show called the No Agenda Show. And while Joe Rogan's stream of conscious, he's all interviews, and he just, introduces his guest and he lets his guest go, and then it goes back and forth. There's no real segments except for his advertisements at the beginning and end. And then as far as the No Agenda Show, has segments, but they're kind of loose. And then there's a lot of podcasts that have like heavily demarked, we're doing this, and then we're doing this, and then we're doing this. So I find that they all have their pluses and minuses as far as pros and cons as far as all that goes.
That's fair.
And Patrick alluded to the length of time. What do you think of our podcasts? Are they like way too long in your opinion, Taylor?
I like podcasts, so I'll listen to them. So
Right.
One of my things is I listen to podcasts as background noise, either while I'm at work or while I'm driving. I pay a little bit more attention to them when I'm driving, but I've called in from work before, so the rubber's burning. But so I'm a bad person to ask. I would listen to a 10-hour podcast given the opportunity. So.
Right. You can always just hit the pause button.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
you listen to a bit, go do something, listen to a bit. So, but some people like short.
Yeah.
So say what you're going to say, get done. I got stuff to do. So there are people like
I
that.
figure if people like short podcasts, they're just not going to listen.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so move now more into gaming, if that's okay. We ready for this?
Sure.
Yeah. So in our podcast, Joe, we've journeyed we were 3.5 fanatics, Pathfinder fanatics. It lost its luster. I went to I want to say it was the 50th Gen Con, and I saw that Gary Gygax memorial, and boy, nostalgia just went all over me. And I started listening to podcasts, and the guys I liked were OSR guys. I would label us as OSR adjacent.
Adjacent. Yes.
Yeah. What do you think our games are going to be 50 episodes from now?
I think it's going to be a mishmash, whatever we can get to play. I'll still play. I like D&D of just about every edition except the 4th. And I have a philosophical opposition to 5th edition that goes beyond just the rules itself, the game company itself. And Pathfinder I liked, and for a lot of reasons. I like complicated games. I like very crunchy games. So, but I also like simple games, as well. I can play any kind of game. So I think it'll be a mishmash going forward because we can't make up our minds.
No.
So like this game and this game only, we really can't do that.
No.
So I don't think.
Although I've really been itching to play something old school.
Yeah.
And whether to go back to AD&D or hell, even basic D&D, I enjoyed Swords and Wizardry the one time I got to play it, but I really have been itching for something old school.
How about you?
And hell, even Dungeon Crawl Classics might scratch that itch for me.
No, it's not really old school, but it's got
Not really old school.
got kind
And
of
those dice, but
it's got some aesthetics.
it has the aesthetics and it has the feel, and I think that's kind of what I'm kind of itching for.
Yeah. How about you, Taylor? How would you? I know you have your own game, right?
Yep, I've been working on my own game that's chainmail inspired. So that should tell you.
That's where you're at. You're old school, yeah.
Yeah, I've been playing. I played since coming. I did have that DCC game. After that, I've been almost exclusively basic or OSE. Got into a Holmes game for a while, which was a lot of fun. Schedule kind of fell apart. So, but the boys decided bedtime was optional. So 8 p.m. stopped being a time.
So would you describe yourself then as fully into the OSR?
I'm an OSR guy.
Right.
Yep. Firmly in it. And the tenets of the old school game appeal to me. I played Warhammer before I played D&D. I really enjoy I enjoy resource management, allocation of henchmen. I enjoy the domain building process, and that's part of the game that got thrown out with the 3rd edition. And it makes sense. They had the market research to say that the majority of people were more interested in developing their individual characters and following a story, which you still follow a story when you have henchmen, but I understand where they're coming from. They want to be they want to be the focal protagonist. They don't want to become the manager, so to speak. And but anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent there. I firmly consider myself
after my own
OSR
heart.
guy.
I kind of enjoy the aspect of resource management, kingdom building, and it reflects a lot in a lot of the video games I tend to play too. Have elements of that in there.
Mountain Blade all the way.
So thinking about Taylor with his own game, was it Weapons, Wits, and Wizards, and we jokingly call ours, the one we've got very little into, Mud Sword. But it started, right, Joe? We're talking about building a better game. It was one of our segments early on. Building a better game, just our ideas of what we thought would be good in a campaign.
Right. And it stems from a long running conversation that we've had for
40,
decades, probably,
almost 30 years,
where
probably.
we sit down and say, we're going to fix D&D.
Yeah, we're gonna
Fix it. And we bounce around a bunch of ideas. And that's really, it's just a conversation more than anything.
right. I wonder, like, and so Taylor's probably much further along in his game. Do you think this idea, other than just a vanity project or a fantasy heartbreaker, people can agree? I mean, there's no way if Joe and I build this game, I don't want to say no way, but if we build this game, are our friends even going to like it? I think I've asked you this before, Joe.
I don't know. However, if Randy says, I'm going to run a game, there will be people that will show up at your door. Now, whether they, after they're done playing, they're going to say,
I'm never going back again.
I like you as a DM, Randy, but the game kind of blows. I mean, they might do that. It's possible.
That's probably
All you have to do is do the way it was done in the original D&D. Put out a basic set that's like level 1 through 3, and then if people really like it, you go to the expert set.
That's an actual good idea I haven't thought about. But I think Joe is probably throwing up a little in his mouth when he thinks about just levels 1 to 3, aren't you?
Yep. I've done levels 1 to 3 a billion times. I can do that in my sleep. Right. So that's one option. However, we already have, because we like D&D. We like the basic idea of rolling a D20, applying your modifiers, comparing it to some number, whether it's a target number or something else, and then you figure out what the results are. That's the essence of what D&D has always been, barring grappling and maybe a couple other things. Old science,
overbearing, pummeling.
Yeah, psionics from first edition, player's handbook, that kind of stuff. We know how that runs, and we have so many different basic sets of rules that cover up to 20th level and beyond that I think you could easily build something, tinker with it, and you don't need to worry about, I mean, you could do the 1st to 3rd or 1st to 5th or something like that for testing purposes, but I don't think you have to. Not with what we have right now at our fingertips with
all the D&D variants you have access, and just it'd be interesting to pick and choose the pieces that you like, because we've kind of done that with our
right. So if you just look at Mystara, that guy had Mystara he's the original Mystara dude. He only had it with a recent download, right?
Oh, I think so. I don't know.
He's one of the original writers, if not the or whatever. He was going to put out a Mystara book for 3rd edition or something like that. Anyway, all that material existed. He just had to fiddle with some of the words, do some typesetting, grab some artwork, some what's the word where you don't have to pay for it, they don't have rights, whatever. Just some
royalty free.
Yeah, royalty free art. Put it all together, and I mean, there's more work. What I'm saying makes it sound easier than what it is, but
I think Watsy let him do it. He had to get there okay.
Sure, but what I'm saying is, it's not like you're starting from zero. So we have, so there's that. There's the most recent thing we already talked about with Dark Sun.
Mm-hmm.
So Dark Sun was a campaign setting for 1st or 2nd edition, and somebody put out a new thing called Red Dawn or New Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing, just some words are changed. So we have a great set of background material that we would only need to tinker with till we think we should put something out. We're not starting this from zero.
True.
And Taylor said he would back us up. So
sweet. All right.
Yep, in for $1.
All right, sweet.
No, I guess what I was referring to as far as like a basic set is, I guess if you were working from scratch, Because I know what I plan to do is put out a basic set with all just the bare bones rules to a role playing game, give that out for free,
Hmm,
and then make the full role playing game something to put on crowdfunding.
good idea.
One thing that I was advised, what you can do, because and Joe, I think what you were talking about is the public domain artwork, open
domain.
license stuff. Yep, and that's great. I use an abundant amount of public domain artwork, just because you can if you once you get into a certain aesthetic, you can find certain artists that fit. So, for example, Gustave Doré works really well. I find him all over my own blog. Just he was like a 17th century illustrator. But anyway. I must be running low on charisma juice because I just lost my train of thought there. But
You give us some more charisma juice?
yeah, I will do. Yeah, I'll do that right after I finish my thought. But yeah, the crowdfunding. One of the things that I was advised is what you can do. Like Patrick, you were saying, you put some stuff out there for free and then crowdfund later. And there have been people who do not necessarily second editions, but reprints with art. And if I was going to crowdfund something, that's what it would be for. I would take something that I wrote, something that I built, but then I would modernize it. I would actually the objective would be to pretty it up. So put some new art in it, put some thematically appropriate and like tonally consistent stuff in it. And so the product itself, keeping that as the labor of love. And you mentioned and Randy, you mentioned, did the game succeed? The game succeeded if it was played at the table. So it doesn't matter if it was you and 3 dudes. It doesn't matter if it was you and 100 people who downloaded it, or it doesn't matter if it went pay what you want and suddenly you're making a living off of RPGs. Now, admittedly, that last one I think is more of a win condition. But to stick with the purity,
So that would be a win condition.
Yeah, just to stick with the purity meter. At the beginning, at the end of the day, it's more important that I think a game will have succeeded if you take the pieces of the game that work for your table and put them to work. And so I mentioned I've been working about. It's funny you mentioned about levels 1 through 4, having done them 1,000 times. My post, I'll get a sneak preview for this Saturday. I've got a post queued for the Weapons, Wits, and Wizardry Adventurer's Guide, which is levels 1 through 4.
If it's a brand new game,
Yeah.
low level can still be fun.
Yeah.
Any with a group of players, low level can still be fun. But if you're saying, Joe, what would you rather do? I would rather start a bump up some because
which makes sense. And I think it depends on the type of game that you want to play. So the reason that I divided it into 4 is because in the big scheme of things, my brain operated on, I think, a 12 level spread. So and it was the first 4 is the first phase of your experience as an adventurer. You're going into the murder pit and trying to pull gold out of the hands of the dead adventurers who went before you. And then once you get that out of there, you move into the second field of play where suddenly you're somebody. You've got those resources. You may hire people to do stuff for you. You get an adventurer trained together and you hike into the wilderness and you find that bigger environment. You set up a camp by that remote dungeon so that you don't have to huck it all the way back to town every time. Or mega dungeon nearby, you set up you clear out level 7 and then you set up a fortified encampment there and you start negotiating with the people above you and below, and so that's that second phase of play where you're the boss, and you can still dungeon delve, you can still do skirmish type engagements, but it's just a different kind of experience. That resource management has changed. You're managing instead of your coin encumbrance and how many hit points you have left. It's like which hirelings go here, and then at the same time, there's nothing stopping you from going down to level 8. And then once you get The third set is Mentzer's, was it Masters? So all of a sudden you're now doing something new. And so for me, the three zones of play are the adventurer, and then the warband, and then the baron. And so you have you start out with a couple of your buddies prying coins from corpses, and then you hire people. You build a name for yourself. You carve your name into the wilderness outside of town, and then the end game is you build. This is mine. You stake you stake your flag in the ground and then defend it. And I think if I've seen an interview or two with Tim Kask where he mentioned that that's where they used to stop. So the original crew, they would play and get to that point and then quit, make a new, or retire that character, make a new one, and then work their way back again. And that's neat. That sort of lends itself towards that, like we mentioned, playing low level over and over again. That lends itself towards that in a sense, because they're making through that progression. And a lot of OSR systems are known for kind of killing their little guys, and so it's not gonna be a smooth process. And but the moral of the story, where I was going with this, is it kind of it's multiple games in the same sitting, and depending on what you're going for, if you enjoy that base camp in level 8, then absolutely the best kind of experience for you is going to be to start at that point where you want to be. And a buddy of mine who lives across town now, the first home game I got invited to after having played at the hobby shop, he started us out at level 17. 17. And
Wow.
that was the only game I've played in that lasted until 9 a.m. From 4 o'clock in the. That was
yeah, dude.
So that was a brutal session, but
we've done that a couple of times.
We have. Now tell me this. This is a good transition. So the second part of this I want to do, and I know we're running really long today, but if we have to, we'll break into 2 if everybody's still good. I want to keep pushing. Are we good to keep going? Okay, yeah. So
I'm happy. I'm gonna grab some charisma juice.
Sure. Taylor took us to this. So we're talking about rulings and rules. So here's my plan, guys. I want to hit these topics a little bit differently. I kind of want to know, when I hit these topics, where is your idea the same as it was a year and a half, 2 years ago? Probably is. You know mine is, because I'm super conservative. And I'm going to scratch out the safety tools. And I'm going to start with what Taylor led us to, which is high level. I think these topics I'm going to hit are we got better responses from folks on these topics. So the idea is, Taylor, we want you to, and Patrick, and I want Joe, when I hit these topics under rules and rulings, they're kind of these big topics that got a lot of people calling in. Well, I thought there was a lot of people about it, and it's been a lot of discussion. And I'm going to start where you kind of left off. So I'm taking one of the things off the outline, the safety tools, and I'm going with high level play. And let me begin. So I liked how Taylor described levels 1 to 4, and then sort of 5 to 7, and then 8 to 12 or whatever. And you got that whole where the dirt balls, we're barely getting by, we're paying people to do a lot of things, we're controlling an area, and then we're the lords of the land, call it good. And I remember reading about Tim Kask saying he said early on, they couldn't envision why anyone would want to play beyond 8th level. They couldn't even know why you would want to. Joe's jaw is dropping to the floor. But I mean, when we say high level play, 12th level is the beginning, right, Joe?
Yeah. It's there. I have a player. So for first edition D&D.
Yep.
And for Beckme.
Yep.
There's stuff beyond. So
well, if you include Rule Encyclopedia, you got 36 levels to run through.
So it's there. Why not do it? But it's play style. Not everybody wants to. There's once you get to a certain point, you've got a lot of stuff to manage as a high level character just for your character sheet.
Yep.
So yeah. I don't understand them not understanding that.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people.
It's like saying, here's a game that goes up to Beckme 36 level, first edition, 20 plus. But we don't really expect you to play beyond 10. Whatever. It's weird.
Here, this is this here's World of Warcraft, but I don't expect you to ever leave Stormwind.
Exactly. What do you think, Patrick? Where's your high level thoughts now these days?
Gosh, it really depends on what game I'm playing. But 12th level is about where I'd start most Dungeons and Dragons style level based games. For me, high level play in 13th Age starts probably around 5th level.
It does.
And that gets high level play gets to be a more nebulous term when you deal with games that don't have levels per se.
Right.
Like Legend of the Five Rings, you have ranks instead of levels, and yeah, they're kind of like levels, but you could be a character that has a ton of experience points banked and lots of different skills, but still hasn't ranked up in insight ranks. However, once you hit like insight rank 2 even, it becomes a whole different game.
Mhm.
And I can't remember what insight rank Jeff and I eventually hit when we played Legend of the Five Rings.
You guys played a long time.
Yeah, we played a long time. I think we got to at least insight rank 3. And I remember a lot of the problems that we used to have with rank 1 play were not a problem anymore
Mhm.
at all. And we were taking on things that were like, oh, Oni the size of a skyscraper. Yeah, sure, we'll take this on. But yeah, it really all depends on what game you're playing. But as far as, sticking with the OD&D, I
Yeah.
think 12th level starts at high level play.
So Taylor, do you not have any desire to go beyond that? I know you like OSR, but like you play first edition D&D. Would you want to play a 1 to 20 campaign?
I absolutely would. The game is there, play it. The OSR has a lot of focus on the 1981 basic expert set, but by no means is that the end of the movement. By no means is that the end of the experience. I would be more than happy to run all the way to 36 out of the RC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I say that,
say,
yeah.
Sorry, you say that phrase, the game is there, play it. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Right.
That's Joe's point.
Yeah, that's my point. I think I had a thought, and
Oh, you did not.
because I'm old and have gray hairs that interfere with my mental faculties, I forgot it.
Your brain cells going out of your head.
Yeah, I just started getting my Doctor Strange here.
Aha. Good.
I'm well beyond
good. He got all the dark hair. Look at him. Dude. Jealous.
Anyway,
It's Snapchat filters.
yeah, I like high level. I actually like high level play.
Yeah, you do. I know. And I like DMing high level play, but what Taylor described, jumping into a 17th level game, that can be, I think I described it once in the podcast. We did a 20th level, 10 levels of Mythic Pathfinder game. That was hours of work before we ever got to the game. And every player over there had just bought these monsters, and I didn't realize what I was in for.
You don't know your character.
Yeah.
Not like you would know your character if you played them up through those levels.
Mhm.
So if you jump into a
Play it, but grow into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if it's a one shot, so I have two minds about a high level one shot. It can be fun because it's high level, anything goes. But it can also be difficult because when you step into a character you've never played before, and it's a high level character, you don't really fully know what it's capable of doing. So you're limited severely. But it still can be fun because it's high level play and it's wonky and can be. I mean, Gonzo is kind of high level for D&D. It gets Gonzo at high level no matter what you do.
I've never seen an
Disintegrate
edition.
something. You can disintegrate. You can teleport between planes. Gate.
And create a demi-plane.
I
And
mean,
you kind of have to too, if you think about it, because what kind of, and Patrick, you mentioned taking on an Oni the size of a skyscraper in L5R. How often do those show up? Because if you think about it, you have to jump to the other plane of existence. You have to do the crazy thing, because if you have a scenario that is challenging enough for a high level party to care about it, it's going to be big. And if you have enough of those kind of situations to come back week after week after week with your game group to come in, that comes into that verisimilitude of the environment. So how many Oni? Why weren't these Oni showing up before we coincidentally hit that third rank? Kind of question. So it makes sense. It has to be Gonzo. It has to jump outside of the normal, because if it didn't, then that other 20th level guy is going to own this wilderness. It wouldn't make sense for why am I hex crawling, because the Elminster is supposed to have already cleared this up for me.
Right. I think Joe's made that point before too, that sometimes those kind of high level characters, you need to put them on a shelf for a while and let time pass, do something else, and then bring them out for a big story. We're gonna play our 18th level dudes and we're gonna do something awesome. I think you're right. It's hard to keep it going. I'm gonna have to time out. I have to time out too. My dog's crying. So I'll be back.
Yeah. I really think that what you were talking about with different stages of play, different once you get to a particular level, the game changes somewhat for you. That definitely happens at high level, and you don't necessarily have to, when you play, fight that skyscraper sized Oni. Do other things, and then fight the big bad guy as a 17th level party, because the 17th level party, all kinds of crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to remember what we did in that game, because my character came in. We were at 17 because I think the party it was a fairly long running campaign, but the party didn't start at level 1 and worked their way all the way up. They had started at maybe 12 and gotten to 17, and so I was brought in a level behind everybody else to just to keep up. But where I'm trying to remember what we did. I think when I got there, the party was infiltrating an underground demon city, so something way out there in terms of theme. I remember one of the players ended up climbing a 200-foot surface. It was the scout of the party. I forget what he was, but this was near the peak of the 3.5 run. So there were more splat books than there were splats on your windshield going through a South Georgia summertime on the interstate. But I remember the walls to the impenetrable fortress were high enough that we actually had to do some calculus. I should have saved this story for when Randy came back, but we had to do some calculus because, or I say calculus, he was up like 300 feet, and then he got attacked by a couple of rocks, and he lost his grip on the wall and fell, and the ref was about to roll damage for the fall, and we said, wait a minute, how does he get to act? Because he had a ring of feather fall. Do I have enough time? Well, it takes you a round to activate. Well, how far do you fall in a round? Well, we know the acceleration is 9.8 meters per second. So we know that we have 6 seconds. At what rate are we going to be falling? So we ended up figuring out, okay, I think he was like 10 feet above the ground when so we did the math on it, and he saved his life.
I missed most of that. I know that's a dangerous calculation.
Yeah. So yeah, the short version, we were said the 17th level game. Somebody climbed a wall that was like 300 feet tall, and he got attacked by some Vrock demons and lost his grip and fell. But before the DM rolled damage, we said, wait a minute, can he activate his Ring of Featherfall? It takes a round to do it, but how far would you fall from stationary if you were accelerating at 9.8 meters per second? And we found out that indeed he was high up enough. To do it.
Okay, another one. If we're good, can we pick up here? Can we skip out of high level now? Are we ready?
Yeah, I remembered what I was
Oh.
going to say.
Okay, do it. Go, old man.
The OSR is from my observation, is more a mindset than a rule set. So I think it doesn't matter what game you're playing necessarily, or what level in D&D you're playing at. You can have that mindset and still have an OSR game. So it doesn't need to be restricted to low level.
Even though it seems a lot of OSR people talk about low level play.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I mean, it may just be like, like Taylor said, you got the low, the mid, and then your kingdom building, and it feels like it's complete then. Okay,
And
so
after all, Conan stories would be high level play.
they're pretty
Yeah,
squashed.
some of them would. Tower of the Elephant, I think, is level 1 to 4, and then you have what's it? Is it the People of the Black Circle, the one with Zaltotune? That's
right.
definitely high level. So
Yeah. Now, what about this? Our fellow anchorite, Jason, C over at Nerds RPG Variety Cast. I don't know if he stirred it up or Arlen Walker did, the whole Rule Zero thing. And I know people may get tired of this. And I'm not looking to rehash everything. I'm just looking to ask your opinion. Now I'm gonna guess because Taylor and I quoted the exact same quote from Third Edition Player's Handbook. And so great minds think alike. So and here's what it says. Was that the only reference you could find, Taylor, that directly was sort of a zero rule?
that was the first that was the first one I found. I know that because it's in a lot of rule books now.
Okay.
If you look at old homebrews that I look at old homebrews that I wrote that are on 10-year-old hard drives, they have Rule Zero written in at the beginning.
Okay.
So the concept and the verb Rule Zero has been around forever. That was the earliest that I was able to find. And I don't have an extensive collection. I don't have my shelf behind me, but I have maybe 15 RPG books total. I don't have a big collection of stuff. But yeah, and so I kind of stopped there because I think what I was going for with that conversation is where did it begin, and what does it mean to your game? So
Yeah. So anyway, I'm just going to read this on page 4 of the 3E handbook. It says your dungeon master may have house rules or campaign standards that vary from standard rules. You also might want to know what character types other players are playing so that you can create a character that fits in well with the group. So my real question here is to you guys. What are your opinions of Rule Zero? And have you really ever, here's one thing where I wasn't sure I'm not questioning whether Arlen had the experience. Have you experienced anybody Rule Zeroing to as using as a hammer?
Okay, I would say back in the day, I don't know, hammer is the right word, but you were pretty much, I run this, I do
True.
what I want.
Fair enough.
And all
Grade
that.
school, I was pretty
but we all were cool with it. And
but I still did it. So yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know if it's precisely right to say it was a hammer, or how Arlen made it seem like it was a bad thing. It was just, it was more, you assumed the role of the guy running the thing. We were the folks playing the thing. And then when we are at the table, we all played and had a good time.
Yeah.
So,
and you had opinions, but a lot of times I would just be like, I'm doing it.
right.
I've had some experience with Rule Zero kind of being a hammer.
Mhm.
Not quite recently. It was within the last 3 years, but I had a DM that before the game even began, he said, "Okay, whatever happens, just let it happen. Don't question my judgments. Don't bring up any rules. Just if I say it happens, it happens. Please don't argue." And right from the outset, that threw up a red flag for me. It's like, okay, dude, we know you, and we're supposed to be able to trust you. But if you're gonna say that right at the beginning, all of a sudden I don't trust you anymore. I mean,
But I was sorry.
It wasn't you.
So
But
I have a question for you, Patrick. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish.
but I don't think I don't think this was done maliciously, but this GM kind of also quoted our backstories for us. And
Do
it
you
was,
think, go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Here's my question to you. Do you think, could that have been said differently and it wouldn't have hit you as bad? Could I have said, look, guys, let's just not argue. I want to set this up. I'm going to put you guys in a situation. If you can just go with me here, I think it's going to be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Could have done the same thing, but then those words may have not been as, I hate to use this.
I think so, because I think the intent, excuse me, I think the intent of that initial speech was, I really don't want to deal with rules lawyering. I really think that was the meat and potatoes of it. I just think it came out as, I'm going to do a lot of quoting what happens to you, and I don't want any arguing. Like, I'm going to have you find a girdle of masculinity, femininity. I'm going to turn you into a woman for half the scenario, or you're at some point you are going to get captured and raped by goblins. You know, that kind of stuff. I don't think that was the intent. I think it was,
At least it wasn't ogres.
yeah.
At the bonus.
I don't think the intent was that. I think it was more like, look, I'm gonna have a goblin in here who can cast a fireball every round. I have a reason for it. I just don't want it, you know, a bunch of rules stuff brought up in game. And I think that was the intent of it. It just kind of came off skeezy.
Yeah. How about you, Taylor? Have you had an experience like that where it felt like Rule Hero was being wielded like a weapon?
I think it's in the age of online play, I think it becomes a bigger deal than it was in the age of or the age preceding. So I'm thinking back, I have had mediocre DMs before, and I've departed from games politely, occasionally ghosting, occasionally just saying, hey, I'm not interested anymore, and stepping out. I have never personally experienced a ref using the rules against me. I've never had that guy. I've never had a GM adversarial to me. It's always been a collective experience. And it's kind of, and the reason I say I think it's more a thing in online play is because at conventions, at online, you're playing with people you don't know. And when you're playing with people you do know, you have to kind of answer for it. And so like you had observed, if you don't want rules lawyering, you just want a rule of cool it, that's fine, so long as you have that expectation set up front. And if you if the guy running the game sets the expectation poorly, they can rephrase it, you can talk it out, you can figure it out, you can read their body language, and you know each other. When you're talking to somebody as a face on a screen, or if you have a VTT, you're looking at the VTT and Discord is minimized because your other monitor isn't working right now, you don't get that. And so, especially with a lot of matcher services, you're gaming with people you don't actually know. It's much easier to run into somebody who can't get an in real life group. And I say can't get an in real life group. I have exclusively played online since at least 2017. So you're talking to somebody who hasn't run or played in person for long enough that a kid born in that time will know how to tell you about how hypocritical I'm being.
Well,
but that said,
no, I think I know. I think there's a difference. There's a subtle difference in what you're saying, and I agree with you, Taylor. when you say someone who can't get one, we've all
Mhm.
had a player who just can't get along. He comes
Right.
in and you're like,
Yep,
dude,
absolutely.
I've had to boot.
Absolutely.
I've had to boot people like that. I've said,
Right. And this, yeah, absolutely. And that's for players, that's for refs, that's for people in your life. That's for relatives sometimes.
Yeah.
And you hate to do it because they're people. But at the end of the day, if they're screwing up the game for the rest of the table, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Yeah.
And so in the age of online play, these people show up and you don't know any better. And they can find 5 people every week, 5 new victims every week. And there's certain folks who get onto, say, the Roll20 group finder, and they have bad luck over and over again, and they think that's just how it is, and so they'll put up with it. And so the age of online play kind of enables the that guy referee. And Rule 0, by the Step 0 definition, which essentially says the campaign you're playing in may not match the rule book. The Joe's story comes to mind, where the guy didn't want to have spellcasters in his game, but he didn't bother telling you. And so that's kind of a that's kind of a underhanded moment, but it is less likely to happen if you are in person and if you're playing with people you know, because when you have a personal connection with people, you have to be a real sociopath to actively hurt your friends or actively kind of try to drain the experience. So,
And I'm sorry. I wonder if that was Arlen's point, because he talked about. I think maybe with with a lot of online play the way it is, it might be better, especially in a matching sort, to say, look, I run 3.0 D&D raw. I read it rules as written. If we have to interpret, we will as a group. I could get that you could say that might be safer, and then people know, oh, if he runs it raw, I can play whatever I want. Or if he
reason number 700 why I prefer in-person play to online.
Me too.
I also think this is born out a little bit of our hobby is people by group, or is people by folks who don't necessarily have the best interpersonal skills.
Which is weird considering how social the hobby is.
Right. So
strange dichotomy.
So I think that as friends, if you know each other, you give a little bit, or you should give a little bit. So when you're a little awkward, you maybe don't word things as well as you could have, or come off as a little stronger than you intended to. We tend to, as friends, we should give a little bit. And to Taylor's point, when you're in a group of a bunch of strangers, you don't necessarily have that dynamic. You don't necessarily give, though you still should. As a civilized person, you should give a little bit. So sometimes we will harp on a behavior instead of, be a bit easy on the person, because you don't know them. Their body language you may not be familiar with, their mannerisms and all that. So I think saying Rule 0 is per se bad because there are bad actors out there is not the fault of Rule 0 or the Rule 0 mentality, which is more like what it is. It's a long-standing RPG thing to mold the game according to what you like. And
one of the cases where one bad apple should not spoil the bunch.
Correct. So and it's kind of a collective mentality to say, well, we can't do this because there are some bad people out there.
Yep. It feels like rulings over rules would be much more effective to steamroll strangers. So rule 0. Well, I say that I'm making a semantic argument, but it's the propensity of the game to encourage the referee to improvise both where the rules are vague, in order to make the experience better, also encourages and empowers the referee to make the experience worse. And if you have a bad actor in that role, which they do exist, but if you have a bad actor in that role, then it's possible. But again, like I said, I just haven't experienced it. And it might be kind of like how I used to live. I used to live in a little town called Thunderbolt in Georgia, and there was a theater. It was packed every weekend, line out the door to get it. No cars in the parking lot. Why? Because if you left your car in the parking lot for long enough to watch a movie, you would come out and it would be on blocks. It was not a good place to live.
Wow.
I never had any problems. Why didn't I have any problems? Is it because I dressed like a slob? I'm over 6 feet tall and 200 pounds. So bad target on every front? Maybe. But but the point is, so again, it might just be experience. It might just be selection bias. But point is, it's possible that it can happen. I do not deny that it has happened, but again, there are mitigating factors that you can step into. So,
and people's experience, it really affects how they color, how they see things, and the rules. Mine as well. Here's a question, and we talked about both of these: game balance and CR systems. And Joe and I are not fan of CR systems, but can game balance? Whether a game balance is good or not, can it be more easily achieved with a CR system? That's kind of what I wanted to ask. I didn't like how I wrote it.
I think game balance is a unicorn.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so having game balance can be a unicorn, or it can be a something that could ruin a game. Because if you really have really good game balance, it can get boring. I know this game is balanced, so guess what? I can game that, and just knowing that this game is really bad. That's one thing I like 13th Age, but the balance part of it makes for kind of a flat experience.
A predictable game.
Very predictable.
Fourth edition is the best edition because the math works.
I think having a game where you don't
that.
necessarily that's unpredictable. You don't want to be so unpredictable that I rolled a 20 and hit this round, and I rolled a 20 the next round. Well, it didn't hit this time. Whoa. You need to have some order, but if there's not some unpredictability, it makes for a boring game. There's probably a healthy balance in there somewhere.
You shouldn't, instead of writing longsword +7 attack, D8 +3 damage, I should have to write that, not DPS equals 7 damage per round.
So then the question is this: and I don't disagree. I mean, I think I saw Taylor do the unicorn sign, so I'm assuming he agrees with the game balance thing.
National creature of Scotland. But
so with this in mind, so if game balance is not an issue, when you write an adventure, I want to take Patrick first. And if you're running Savage Worlds, are you familiar with that, Taylor, or not?
I have heard of it. I have not played it, but I know what it is.
Let's stick with D&D. If you're going to run first edition D&D, there's no CRs in sight. We know about quadratic wizard, linear fighter. How do you set up your encounters? And what I mean by that, I'm not in great detail, but my question is for you, Patrick, is how do you know if this is going to be good enough, a good challenge, not a good challenge?
Intuition, baby.
Oh, okay.
Intuition.
And experience.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit of experience, and experience will also temper your intuition. And if you run enough games, you kind of have a feel for, okay, look, if I toss in this ogre along with all these goblins, it's gonna wipe the party.
Gotcha.
Although I have been shocked before.
Yeah. What about you, Taylor? You can run fourth level. You guys are in that wilderness now. 5th level. to run that adventure, how do you set it up in BX where they have no CRs, or what do you do?
The absence of CR is indicative of its the absence of CR is indicative of the importance of player agency and player ingenuity. So if I'm setting up a wilderness, and I do admit I have a procedure to it, but I'll set up sort of like an encounter table. I'll set up an encounter. I don't think about, okay, what is appropriate. Instead, I allow the party to form themselves to their environment. So if they are steamrolling, then that means they're doing something right. But it also may mean I need to do something deeper. I may need to drop them into a demi-plane. I may need to give them the next level of challenge. But I remember my 3.5 experience. I remember CR and EL and trying to do the math. And I remember doing the math and thinking this is way too much work. So I remember putting together adventures based on hit dice and based on, okay, this is what you see. And we had adventures that, especially near the end of that. So when I was in college, we had a league that we ran at the friendly local comic shop. And at the beginning, we were writing a lot of official material, a lot of published adventures. And the stated goal was to bring people into the hobby, introduce them in a way that would make them enthusiastic about it, and to justify the tables that we were borrowing from the comic shop owner to inspire them to purchase material for the game from the comic shop. And for the most part, we were successful in that. But by about the first year, the original gung-ho DMs kind of fell out. And by the end of it, it was just me and my roommate running games. And so we were doing whatever the hell we wanted. And so at the end, we were a bit more Monty Hall than we needed to be. And then that brings you into the treasure aspect of it. So you have the CR of the monster, the EL of the parties, and then you have the anticipated treasure value of the magical gear. And there's entirely too much science in that. And as I do have a bachelor's of science, I am in a scientific field. The game itself is more like economics. There's people involved. And when there's people involved, there's something else to it. There's more to it than just what you put in. And so that's a really roundabout way to answer a very simple question. And if I have to balance, if I'm out to balance an encounter, then I step back and try to think about, why am I doing that? Instead, build the encounter the way it makes sense. And if I'm in a dungeon environment where I've procedurally generated and there's a few under-equipped monsters, well, where did they come from? Are they on a foray from a bigger camp in a different level, or they were in a bigger camp? They were better equipped, but they lost because there's something more dangerous the level down. And so you integrate that. You figure out where you are, and it's not the responsibility of the referee or the dungeon master to build an encounter that's suitable for the party. More so, it is the responsibility of the party to step up to the occasion and figure out how to overcome the challenge presented in the most effective manner. So, is it straight up combat? Do I charge in? If you got a couple goblins, maybe. If you got a couple ogres, maybe you try to figure out another way around.
I think it's very well said, Taylor. And there's an issue there that I thought you were leading to, and maybe you were, maybe you weren't. In that old 3.5 rule set Pathfinder, you could follow those rules as written. No guarantee when that monster or counter hits the table, it's the challenge you want. I've had players and groups get TPK'd by something that was a CR plus with an EL +1. Because they just that party couldn't handle it. And then I've had other parties that were way low level and they kicked the crap out of something that was EL +8. And I was like, how do they do that? Because you can't account for the human element.
Yeah, the human. favorite thing I've ever favorite moment thinking about so I had a homebrew magic system I was playing with, and one of the players, so I had this big monster set up, and there was this weird challenge they had to figure out and defeat him and to get this magic item. And so they get the magic, they get the MacGuffin, and the guy figured out that he could do a dimension door style teleport. So it's not dim door, but there was a teleport effect that moved them to the right place to where they could just kind of evade the guardian. And so there was no encounter. So there was this big elaborate encounter planned, and they just teleported away. And
Been there, done that.
Yep.
yeah,
I've seen
they
that.
just tell, and the other play, it still remembers it because the player goes, "I do this," and I'm like, "Okay, cool. So you're outside now." He goes, "Wait, that worked?" I'm like, "Yeah, why wouldn't it?"
Yeah, we did
I
that.
think riffing
at,
on what Taylor was saying, I think CRs, I think they were born of a mindset that there is a very, very specific way that each character has to be played, and every group is going to have one fighter, one rogue, a cleric, and a wizard. And everything is calculated by, okay, this encounter, the wizard is going to do this, the fighter is going to do this, the thief's going to do this, and the cleric's going to do this, and it's going to march forward being played absolutely in a specific way. Whereas we all know that no two wizards are played the same.
No adventure survives the player characters.
that doesn't even take
think-
die rolls into account.
I
So-
think challenge ratings are born of that idea that the game is played kind of robotically.
Right. I think it also has to do with the game designers thinking that they need to dumb down the game and hold
True.
the DM's hand. Here, we don't trust you to be able to figure this out. So we're going to tell you how to do it, so you never have to worry about it. Follow this formula and you're all good.
I like
It's-
guidelines
right.
more than hard math for
Yeah.
challenge ratings.
When they
Yeah.
had guidelines already, they had published modules. So
Yeah.
the early days, you had all this tournament modules, and you can start there. And if that works for you, then you're good. You can follow kind of the pattern that they set out, or you can branch out from there.
Well, even
We think
DM's guide should have a section on, excuse me, should have a section on, how to balance, how to create encounters without resorting to some mathematical chart.
I think their intention, I want to give them some positive. There's a positive spin on this intention. They wanted to help new dungeon masters.
Yeah.
Here's how you make an encounter. But really what it is creativity. Do something cool. And I mean, I'm more coming to that now. Like I'm with Taylor, do something cool and see what the players can figure out. Make it make sense. And if they can figure it out, great. If not, maybe they can't handle this challenge and they'll have to go back to the drawing board.
Or they have to make new characters.
Or that. Well, if all you're going to do is charge in at the 4 hill giants in your 4th level, you're probably going to, yeah. This might be our last topic because I'm not sure if I want to do resource management. We are really running long. He may end up doing 2 episodes on this, Joe. But this could be a long one, maybe not. And this is one I'm not sure we've fully discussed, but it's come in and out. Is the GM just a player?
Yes and no.
Okay.
We're all players. The DM has their role,
Mhm.
their responsibilities. The players are different.
Okay.
So just a player is kind of loaded. So if you're saying that the DM is higher status than player, I might say no. I
Okay.
think the DM does take on almost invariably, unless they do a lot of lazy DM applications.
You don't mean that in a bad way, though, right?
No.
Like
The
lazy, you mean-
TM, lazy DM TM,
Sly flourish.
Sly flourish.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. The DM often takes on one, they normally buy more books, and then they're got more responsibility generally before the game sets up. So
Their role's more involved.
their roles more involved. So you could argue that they have slightly higher status. It's a perception probably. But once you hit the table, everybody's playing, the DMs, and they have their roles to play. So I think it's a depends type of question instead of a straightforward answer.
Okay. What do you think, Patrick?
I agree with Joe. I said, you know, the GM is a player. Yeah, you're playing a game with your friends. But and the GM probably has a far more involved role because usually they're the ones that buy more of the books and the merchandise and stuff. They're the ones that craft if you're not running from specifically modules, they're the ones that's crafting the adventure. They're the ones that spend the whole time dotting I's and crossing T's. So yeah, really all the other players have to do is come with their characters. But as for the importance of player roles, I think it really depends on what you bring to the table. I mean, you have your wallflower gamers that just are there to roll some dice and like watch the story unfold. And then you have players that are like really into it and kind of take charge of the game.
2-page background on session 1. Yep. What do you think, Taylor?
The DM is a player with homework. So it depends on, you have to think about why do we play. So I really enjoy taking on the role of running a game because I really enjoy putting together challenges, situations, and I really enjoy seeing how the players figure out how to overcome. And it's dirty secret, a skeleton in the closet. I root for the players. Plans tend to work when I'm running games. Now, I'm not saying I'm soft. I'm not saying that anything will work. I once actually literally made a player cry.
Good job.
And
Good
I felt
job.
bad. I felt
Don't feel
bad.
bad. Don't feel bad. He deserved it.
No.
Yeah, a handful of things went wrong. I think the thing that broke. So the thing that broke the back there is trying to block an electrical attack with a metal weapon, but it didn't quite work out. But so it depends on what you're there for. So if the party has a challenge and they overcome that challenge, then they feel they've won. Then the game master has won because they had a good experience. They're talking about their good experience. You were the one who facilitated it. That's a win condition. At the same time, if the party comes back and they don't overcome it, they try something, the dice don't go their way, it doesn't work out, that's all right. If they have to re-roll, they have to re-roll. If you want to mulligan, you can mulligan, if you're a sissy. But at the end of the day, what's more important is they learned from the experience. They're coming back, and the fact that they're coming back, that means you've won again. Because at the end of the day, if the players win or if the players lose, if the game continues, that means people are coming back, and that means you're coming back. And so where the objective is a little different. With the player, you as a player show up to have a challenge put in front of you to see if you can overcome that challenge. And at the higher level play, we're talking about like the exploration phase or the domain management phase. There are still challenges. So at the lower end of the spectrum, my challenge is, okay, how do I get the rubies out of the statue's eyes without waking up the basilisk? Whereas at the higher domain play, it's like, how do I beguile the Baron 10 hexes over without incurring undue undue, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Without incurring the
Consequences. Certain consequences that are
what are the consequences I'm avoiding? So the challenge is going to be different depending on the game you're playing, and that kind of ties back to if your players enjoy that basilisk sneaking over the basilisk and getting the rubies versus if your players enjoy politics between the emperor and the neighbors and then the elves that are hiding in the woods in the middle. It's what you're in the game for. So if once you found that Zen moment, that's what you're going for. And so the referee is a player with homework. That's a joke, and it's also true.
Mm-hmm. It is true.
Okay. So now I mostly agree with you guys. I have a question for you though. At the table and outside of the table, is this a democracy?
No, but why does that
Everybody,
matter?
if players and DMs are equal, I'm hearing the DM is just a player that has to do other stuff. Is it a democracy?
The DM and the players are equal in the sense that the player and the computer are equal when you're in a video game. They're two different roles. It's husband and wife. It's mechanic and engineer. They're two separate, but there's two separate equally important elements of the experience with different responsibilities.
Yes, because the DM can get fired.
He can. But as I pointed out, so can a player.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I fired him.
Yeah.
So fair enough. I actually agree with you guys. I think that's right. Joe knows I just like to be sneaky and controlling. But here's the one caveat that drove me crazy because I played this past weekend. I played finally got to play 5e. Patrick was there. Time investment. Dude, do you players got it easy? Oh my Lord. Talk about having it easy.
You can mitigate time. You can mitigate some of the time investment.
Not to get the kind of wonderland that I provide. Oh no. Okay, fair enough. I don't think you can.
You can mitigate some.
I can't.
Some.
And I'm an anal DM. Fair enough. I'm pretty anal. I want to write everything down. I have a 2-hour adventure and I write 400 pages of notes. So
when we come to democracy, I think the core element of the whole democratic part might come from content in game. And me, I'm a storyteller GM at heart. I like to tell a good story. I know what kind of story I want to tell when the players come into the game. I use the players to accomplish that story's ends. Now,
user.
I am a user. I'm a user and abuser. No, I go so easy on players.
You're ridiculously easy, Patrick. You're tough enough.
Yeah. But I will on occasion like players to maybe dictate a bit how the story goes. I know we did it in 13th Age with the tokens and you can exchange the tokens for narrative control. But to me, I think the narrative control has to be kind of really limited. It's one thing to turn in a token and say, oh, we're lost, but I had this map in my pack that just happens to be in the place that we are, and if we get to look at the stars, I'll be able to get us back on the right track. Or saying, using the same token to say, oh yeah, the Baron's my brother, I can get us a hookup. It's like, no, the Baron's not your brother. I never allowed this. I never will allow it. stick to taking some lesser narrative control. And I'm not going to change who the bad guy is. I'm not going to change major events that happen just because one of the players, tosses a token at me and says, no, I don't like it. Change it.
Oh, okay. Do we want to move on to the contest, or do you guys want to tackle that last topic? It's getting pretty late, so.
Is it the safety tools or the resource?
Oh, we punted that, went to high level play.
No, you punted that.
Yes, I did. Oh, do you want to go back to that?
I will just say,
I don't know.
simply,
I consider even the word safety tool to be somewhat triggering.
Okay, let's do it. Safety tools, they trigger Patrick.
I think they're stupid.
Yeah. I think it's because safety tools are way too easily abused. I know it's supposed to, protect people from having their feelings hurt, but there are some things you kind of got to expect when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, I could be a complete troll.
Is that a unicorn though, Patrick?
What's that?
Is that a unicorn? Like the Rule Zero hammer?
Maybe.
I see where you're coming from. And so that's the same place I came from, to be truthful. If I'm running the game, I've put a lot of effort into prepping the game. I've put a lot of effort into creating a circumstance, and I'm not big on the surrender of narrative control to the player. So that is not to say, so the narrative will obviously follow the players because the players' decisions create the emergent story, but the players aren't determining the world. And like you said, like you were on about for a while there, you're the world, they're in it, and that's the way the game is meant to be. Well, that's the way that that the original and OSR style D&D is meant to be played. Now, it's, to be clear, it's okay not to be OSR. If people don't like that, by all means play another game. By all means do spend your time in a way that brings you joy and creates those memorable experiences. I will never shit on somebody trying to make a memorable experience.
Right.
But if you want to, if you're playing at my table, this is what to expect. And that's where I'm coming from. And so the safety tool, I have a bad habit of being fiery aggressive with people who try to control what I do or say. I go out of my way to be accommodating. I go out of my way to be I try to make people feel at home. I like feeling at home, and I want to produce that experience. If I'm at the table, I want everybody to enjoy it, and I'm gonna go out of my way to try to make an environment that is good for that.
Right. I don't think anybody here disagrees with that.
Yeah, and for me, putting the mechanic on the table hurt my feelings. So my initial impression of a safety tool was that putting a mechanic on the table that removes my agency as the ref tells me that you don't trust me. And if you don't trust me, why are you playing in my game?
Right.
That's
like if I wanted to be a complete troll with X cards and stuff, I'd toss out an X card every time I took damage, saying I don't like blood in the game, so I can't take damage. But I told the story to these guys once, but I backed this recent game called Maganomia, and it was said to be the spiritual successor to Ars Magica, which automatically made me a mark for the game. And once I got my copy, at least my digital copy, I was completely turned off by their entire first chapter. I mean, first of all, they go into like, what's a role-playing game, blah, blah, blah. It's like, if I bought this game, I know what a goddamn role-playing game is. But then they went into the golden rule, the silver rule, the platinum rule, and all that stuff. And it's all about making the players welcome, feel home, all that stuff. It's like, yes, I know as a GM, I want my players to have fun. Then it got to the section on safety tools. And that was one of those things where I read through it and, I rolled my eyes. I read through all the different safety tools. And then it got down to a single sentence in that section. And that was, safety tools are not optional. The hell they aren't.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
made me rage so hard against that game. I'm going to receive my physical copy, and it's going to remain on my shelf until the end of time, because I don't want to subject any of my friends to that. And it'll be a constant reminder for me to never back another one of their products ever again, no matter how good the rules of the game might be.
Ooh.
All because you told me I have to have X cards and all that stuff in my game. With respect, screw you.
So Patrick is my spirit animal. So, but now I say that Jason C actually turned me on to a use case for it. Talking about safety tools. If I'm playing with people that I know or people that want to be in my game, they know me and trust me, and the safety tool is not necessary, and the suggestion that one is get out because you don't trust me, why are you here? That's valid. But at the same time, if I'm at a convention and I don't necessarily know who I'm getting into playing with, or if I'm on a online, if I'm doing Roll Finder, and I've never played with these people before, that's a use case. So so I would not say that safety tools are not are intrinsically bad. There's no use case for them. There exists a reason for them to exist. But again, Patrick is definitely, I'm on board with you. They're definitely optional. Every rule in the book is optional, but at the same time, safety tools are optional when why have them if you're not going to use them? So
Right.
Yeah.
There was one rule in there. It's kind of a new version of a safety tool. They call it consulting the stars. If a character in the game is going to act out something or participate in a plan or cast some spell, the group as a whole can tell, the GM or the players can tell that player, oh, you have to consult the stars. And what it is it's a vote. And if one person says no, you cannot do that action. It's like, oh, I want to pick the lock with a magic spell. Oh, well, we're going to have to consult the stars on this one. And then, everybody says, or one person says no. It's like, well, I'm going to cast the spell anyway and pick the lock. And it's like, no, you can't. You consulted the stars, and one of your fellow players says no, so you can't do that.
I am very harsh I'm even harsher on these two on safety tools. I understand the use case. I still think it's born out of emotionally stunted people, because once you go to a table and they do things you don't like, you leave the table. I mean, especially at a convention. I know people don't like hearing that. I paid for this, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah, but
We as adults have all kinds of ways to disengage from undesirable situations. And the easiest one is to leave. You can do that online too. You can just close the window.
There
It's
are
very easy.
Yeah, there are some things in games I can perfectly understand you don't want to deal with. They're like violence against kids. I usually won't put that in my game because that's usually universally,
Hated.
hated. Rape. I don't think I've ever had anything in my game about rape. I know it, but I know there's probably some people who might be uncomfortable with that. Sure, I'm okay with that. But some of the stuff on the list of stuff that you can throw up an X card for is like, blood, storms, because I hate lightning. And I am one of the most, no, I think I'm the most arachnophobic person that everybody here or in the world knows.
So no drow in this game.
Right. You can't have drow with Patrick.
I mean, when I went to see Lord of the Rings, Return of the King in the theater with Randy, he found out that during the Shelob scene, I was white knuckling and sweating profusely in the theater. And it's a big fake spider.
It was a kind of scary scene, even if you're not arachnophobic.
There's been a time where I have spider miniatures, and I remember painting one, and I had one set on the arm of the chair, and I happened to glance over and freak myself out because shit, I forgot I left a spider miniature there. But the thing is, I can still handle spider miniatures. I could still handle a role-playing game with spiders in it. Now, if it's like that one DM who takes an actual tarantula and puts it on the table, probably going to be a dead tarantula, a burned down house, and a dead DM. But,
he would pretty much deserve it too.
Yeah, but just talking about that stuff in game, even though I'm horribly arachnophobic, I mean, that doesn't bother me, and I don't see a reason to say no spiders in the game.
I did play a game. At Gen Con with a well-known game designer. He designed the game. Someone he knew played it, and they did something in the game that made me very uncomfortable. Just the description of it. Having said that, I wouldn't have X-carded it. I wouldn't have lines and veiled. But I would like to think the people that made this did that with the intention of, hey, I don't want to have anybody have a not just a bad time, but to have a bad experience on like flashback or whatever. But to me, it seems like if you're sitting down to play D&D where you kill stuff and take their loot, why are you getting all caught up about? I mean, what are you getting squeamish about, really? In other games, I guess maybe in a horror game, there could be lines that could be a shady, but I'm not inclined to use them either. I just would like to, I don't know.
Ravenloft, don't scare the players.
Yeah.
It's indicative of our age. People
Yeah.
don't want to be confrontational. I mean, I don't like being confrontational either.
No, me neither.
But it's I think it's an over, like the agency thing and the narrative control thing. I think we've gone from the DM is the ultimate master of your entire existence while you're here at the table. Don't even speak out of turn to him.
Right.
Okay. And now it's DM. He's a punk. You can just do whatever. Here's an X card. If you don't like blood in the game,
what happens
throw it at
in the
him.
next room. There is a Vorpal in the next room, and it's laying on there with 10,000 gold pieces.
And people have mental illness, and they might have to not have certain things mentioned in their presence, or they will break down. I understand that is an actual issue. I don't really get it because just saying certain words, they never trigger me. But I'm a different person. But at the same time, I don't tell other people they can't have safety tools. If you want to run a game that has safety tools in it, and you like safety tools, go for it. Do your thing.
Sure.
I'm not going to be anywhere near that table.
Okay. Well, do we want to do the last one?
Resource management.
Resource management. We did a one on abstract resource management, like the Black Hack, where you use a die to keep track of your arrows, and every time you roll a 1 or a 2 on the die, it drops down another die type till it's gone. And then the idea of counting and really managing the details. I think Taylor already mentioned once that he is kind of a fan of resource management. So I imagine you lean a little more toward the accounting side.
Yep, definitely. I enjoy figuring out my encumbrance. I enjoy trying to make those decisions between what we bring and what we don't, whether we should bring a mule down, whether we should bring that torchbearer. Can we afford that next mercenary? That's all a big part of the game for me. I enjoy that. It's reminiscent. If y'all have played Games Workshop Mordheim, I really loved that. I was my first big hobby shop game was Warhammer, specifically the future version, the 40K, and that's all about your point values. What do you pick? Can you balance your list against what you anticipate to bring against you? And so there's a lot of cognition that goes into trying to understand both the rules and how they interact with other elements on the battlefield. Mordheim is a step between Warhammer Fantasy and role play, where you have that warband. That's that tier 2 play, and that's a big appeal to me. I enjoy that. So coming into the hobby out of wargaming, out of that different kind of what is the adrenaline source? What is the serotonin source? Yeah, I enjoy being the party accountant.
I'll admit I have a penchant to, like to record every sword we pick up, and see how much I can get for all the loot when we get to town. I remember playing Rise of the Rune Lords Pathfinder with Jeff as a GM. I was basically keeping track of the party's share of all the loot, and it was my responsibility to deal with the merchants in town and break the economies of like Sandpoint and Magnamar and stuff.
Right.
But I do like some resource management, but there is something to say about some kinds of abstract resource management. I'm thinking like I know Joe will probably vehemently disagree with me, but the
I already do.
Spell expiry dice.
No.
Depending on how magic works in your setting. If magic is supposed to be more unreliable, I can see a spell expiry die. But if magic is like perfectly measured, perfectly balanced, then yeah, if you always know that your mana shield is always going to last 3 hours, that's fine. But if magic is supposed to be more mysterious and somewhat unreliable, I can see a spell expiry die as adding a little bit of flavor to the game.
So I did think that first edition's fly spell randomly ending, that seemed a little cruel.
Just a little.
Oh, shoot.
Teleports random elevation.
Yeah.
Inside of a stone wall. Oopsie.
Joe, are you a resource management? Do you want the details? Or are you kind of, I waffle. So
I like the details to a degree. I don't understand where people don't even want to keep track of the arrows. I can't be bothered to even knock off an arrow off my character sheet. I mean, it's kind of weird.
It's so troublesome.
But I think some of it is born from early gaming, where you could have hundreds of thousands of gold pieces and pages of gear and all kinds of stuff like that. And people were like, I don't want to keep track of all this crap. But
it's strange.
You're going to find somebody in your party that's like Taylor. I love keeping track of stuff.
Yeah, or Patrick.
Both. I love keeping track of stuff. And
have a redundancy.
If not everybody has to do the same things. So I think instead of having all these, the game already has a ton of abstractions. Hit points, armor class, to hit roll, it's almost all abstraction. I don't want to add any more to it. I'm fine with having a list of stuff.
To become roll master.
Yeah. I don't need that much. But Too many abstractions, I think, kind of ruins the game.
You know, one thing that you mentioned, we have 10,000 gold coins. A lot of people really don't realize, do you know how much room that takes up and how much that actually weighs?
You couldn't do it.
I remember there's a couple of role-playing games where it's like a gold or a coin pouch will hold this many coins. This is how heavy it is when it gets filled up. Keep in mind when carrying gold.
You're looking at. I watched an episode of Shadiversity, if you guys are familiar with that.
Yeah.
And he was going over. He had some gold coins or coins, metallic coins that he bought, and there was.
Well, that was a recent video, wasn't it?
Yeah, fairly recent, and it basically came down to a fairly decent sized pouch. You're only going to have up to a couple hundred gold pieces, likely, and it's going to be pretty weighty. So he was thinking 500 gold pieces is probably about the most you're going to be carrying around, which makes sense.
Old Man Grognard had something he talked about a couple days ago with Pogs, or the tokens for play. He said he cut out the tokens and then pasted them to washers, and it seemed like a good idea until he had 1,000 of them.
I heard Glenn say that. That was hilarious. Oh, okay. Well, I think that's a good walk down memory lane. What do you think, Joseph?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, it's time for the contest of champions, baby. Who's going to win Sweet Book of Freeness?
Hopefully someone that is a real person. Because
Okay,
there's a good chance that someone on here isn't a real person.
So the possible winning things are, what if we actually roll your number? There's 10 people, right, Joe? We got 10 emails. So you'll have a choice between what is it, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, 5e adventure, I think, for levels 1 to 5. It's a very pretty book. The Advanced Edition Companion, it's paperback. It's basically, I think, turning, I don't know, is Labyrinth Lord a 1E clone, or is it a D&D, old D&D clone? But this looks like 1E stuff. And then, of course, the last one is Feng Shui 2, for you more modern fans, less OSR Kung Fu action role-playing. And I got a little special prize I'm going to put in there, role-playing related too, for the winners. So
it's a choice of one of those three.
A choice of one of those three, yeah. So shall I go ahead and roll? You got them numbered? You got them numbered there, Joe?
I can count. It's only 10.
Can you? You love it.
I have 5 fingers on each hand. So
okay, rolling once. Number 2.
Oh, that's
What?
awesome.
What?
Number 2 happens to be Clerics Wear Ringmail.
Oh, dude, this was not planned. Oh, Taylor, my man. All right. All right. Whenever we get off,
So you get to add to
You
your
don't even
small
need
collection.
to email him.
I
No,
do.
you have to give me his address, and I'll send it to him right away.
I will.
So, do you want to think about it, or do you know which one you want? You want to tell him which one you want, or think about it?
Probably go with Labyrinth Lord.
All right, then.
So what is the Advanced Companion? I know what it is. The Advanced Companion tends it is because the original Labyrinth Lord was a ret clone for BX. So
Okay.
back in the day when the OGL first came out, Osric was the way that you could publish for AD&D 1E without, having somebody come after you. Because you remember TSR, we spelled it funny joke with a $sign instead of the S, because they would come after you. You could have something on your personal website talking about your home character, and they would tell you to take it down because it was their IP.
I remember that.
And so the OGL was that giant departure from it, but Osric for 1E and Labyrinth Lord for BX, that was, if I want to play the basic line, I go play this. I publish for Labyrinth Lord, and for those listening rather than watching, I was winking pretty hardcore. But so yeah, Labyrinth Lord was probably the OG BX clone, I think, because I was late. If I'm mistaken, feel free to call in Biggest Geekus on Anchor and tell them all about how I was wrong. So,
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
Because I'm coming in. I came in late to the movement.
Or
so.
you could email clericswearmail@gmail.com.
I will, and I'll email them too, so I can
Yep.
get an address. All right, buddy, that's awesome.
Send your hate mail.
Yep.
Dude, Jason's gonna
clericswear email @gmail.com because it was I tried to sign up for Clericswear Ringmail, but I actually asked tech support and they were like, no, there's some filters that you can't. And the theory was that because Ringmail actually ends with Gmail is why they wouldn't let me have it. So yeah, but Clericswear email, I think it was a good compromise.
I think some folks
Those
would call
techies
in
and their stupid rules.
And their free services.
Yes.
Congratulations to Taylor.
Their free service to spy on your email.
Are we going to do a negative plane segment? Or are we going to call it good this time? Maybe save that.
I think we've really been negative already.
I agree. It's been pretty negative all the way around.
I think, and what you have, the only thing that is not that we haven't already talked about actually, because of what you have listed here, we've talked about all of it already in the call-in section, is Kickstarter and their new comic book liaison, stirring up some controversy.
Oh, okay.
And basically, they got a new person doing their liaising, and they liaised so well that they blocked most people.
Most creators?
Right. So lots of people were blocked, like mass block is what somebody said they think it is. And so a lot of the comic book creators have taken their toys and went over to Indiegogo.
Oh, okay. Well, I checked that out and they had a lot of comics.
Yeah. So it's, I believe, somewhat related to the Comics Gate, another gate, Comics Gate movement or group. There's a .org with that name, Comics Gate. And
there's a lot of gates going on. I wonder who's keeping them.
That's what I've been wondering about.
Well, I was thinking that if we did make a game, we would call it Gatekeepers. After all, that's
the name of the referee.
Yeah, the gatekeeper.
The gatekeeper.
Oh, there you go. Still can be Mudsword, but the GM's the gatekeeper. That'll go well.
But yeah, it's and I think and Comics Gate is a bunch of folks that are being called a hate group now, obviously.
Just because they want to tell comics without all the SJW crap in it.
Well, yeah, folks will get a property and instead of telling a story in the continuity of that property, they will have their own story and use the property as a skin on their story instead.
Yes.
Much like we put skins on our phones and whatnot.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd like to thank Taylor for joining us and Patrick for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and all the call-ins. I know I gave Joe Richter a hard time, and I expect him to return the favor next time. Taylor called in, but he's here. And then Jason gave us his handful of good calls, so we really enjoyed that.
It was a pleasure to meet you, Taylor.
Yeah, really good.
We do need to probably. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. What, Joe?
No, that was all I said. Just good to be met.
Oh,
yes, definitely. We probably at some point do need to put a pin in the Masters of the Universe, because it'll probably go back and forth forever.
Yeah. If Jason wants to come and blast me one more time, that's fine. Or Joe Richter, he can blast me one last time on anything, but I'm probably not going to respond just to kind of keep. Or I'm going to say, okay, you're welcome to it. And so I think he said I'm welcome to mine. He's welcome to his opinion, so it's all good. So let's give some plug here. If you'd like to support our show, please help get the word out. Check out our website at www.biggestgeekuspodcast.com. If you want to support, hit the support tab. Or if you just want to share with your friends, or how would you say, Joe? Or enemies. That's a good option too. Check us out on Odyssey and YouTube. Rate us on your podcaster of choice, or is podcatcher of choice, my bad. Our email is thegeeks@biggestgeekispodcast.com. Send us any questions or comments on the show, even He-Man if you have to. We would also like to encourage you to check out the podcast we have listed below. So for Taylor and Patrick, this is Randy.
And this is Joe.
Remember, you can't be big like us and be geeks like us.